Phipps, and that was my haircut down in Key West when I had a little mullet going on, At 25, I started writing this. I started studying astrology when I was 14 as an apprentice to a 62-year-old wise old woman who was like my Yoda, And I'd go over to her house and she'd make tea and bread and we'd sit there and learn astrology, In Florida? In Colorado, Boulder, right outside Boulder. And so, 9 years later, I was down in Key West, and I didn't even know you could actually be an astrologer, like a professional astrologer. Then I saw this lady out there in the pier doing charts for tourists, and I looked over her shoulder and I realized, wow, I know more than she knows. Just from meditating on the archetypes and reading every single book on astrology and having such a great teacher in Boulder that broke it down for me, all through high school. And so I started doing charts out there in the pier, and next thing you know, 3 years later, it just had all this new insights. I had never read anything in the book, so I just put it all in one book right here. And this book recently just went out of print. And so I was making an audio version of it, the last one, But I went to my dad's in Boulder last month, and he had a whole box of them in his basement that I had stowed there when I was on the way through on the journey, and I was like, I got a whole box of them, I'm back in print. So if you want one of these books, they're good. They're just not required, but it is sort of like a textbook. And I just finished the first ever astrology documentary. I've been all over conferences and filming this beautiful 48 different astrologers on here. Stephen Forrest, Rick Tarnas, all these astrologers, Carolyn Casey, just the world's most famous astrologers are in this movie. It's kind of like The Secret and What to Believe. And we just did the premiere in Denver last month, and we had 600 to 800 people come. It was just it was amazing, gathering of astrologers. So Return of the Magi, we have a documentary for astrology now. So astrology is coming back in the world. And one of the main reasons is because the planet Uranus, which governs astrology, is coming into a square to Pluto, the planet of transformation. These two planets were aligned in Virgo in the 60s. 1964-65 with the Civil Rights Movement and just the whole revolutionary energy within Virgo, the sign of the flower children, the be here now, Earth generation. And that vibration is just a seed when it starts. So those children being born there, even though the general astrological cosmic weather at the time was whoa, feeling it, those kids born in there have it in them. So as they grow up, they become the embodiment of that energy. Gives me chills just talking about it. In 2010, the energy is going to come to its exact square, which in a square in astrology you're going to learn is an angle of conflict for growth and passion. So when two planets square and two generational planets like that, that means that generation's power is coming to its maximum point of waxing. So in 2010, it's going to be just 2 years from now, it's going to be, or a year and a half from now, it's going to be 10 times more intense than the 60s. And astrology was really popular in the 60s, so now astrology is coming back as a renaissance with online learning and the internet, and some of these astrology geniuses that, when I was 21, the new ones, they learned what some astrologers took 25 years to learn in 2 years. They're just, multitasking on the internet, so. But this class here is designed to get you up and rolling with chart interpretation. You'll be speaking astrology by the end of this class. And it's kind of like when you go take one of those foreign language classes, you're going to go on a trip to Japan, and you sign up for an 8-week course, so you can learn all the phraseology and everything. This is kind of like that. You can go much deeper. The rabbit hole goes a lot deeper. But this will get you going down the rabbit hole in terms of learning how to speak it and bring it into when you take someone's chart at a coffee shop and just go bam, you'll be able to see it diving right into the heart of the chart. Is what this class is about. And so that interpretation sheet, the flow chart, that's going to be invaluable. So don't lose that, even though it's little. It's probably easy to lose, but by the end of the class, you'll know how to. Those little boxes are little check marks, and so there's something interesting to say about each planet. Spiritual principle of the sun. In someone's chart. So if you say something about that, you can check it out. And in your mind, you kind of go through a checklist what else could I say? Because there's so many things, when you look at a chart. This is Christina's chart. I build these for people. I cut them out in wood and put all the zodiac symbols on here, and they got the planet signs and houses. And then you have all these little hair clips for little planets. And they grab on and ride around the zodiac. And so basically you can just see your cycles, the moon goes around every month, once a month. Jupiter here takes 12 years to go around. Pluto takes 248 years to go around. So when Pluto comes, it's intense, Just went back into Sagittarius for a brief spell. But yeah, so these planets, the sun goes around every year. You can see the sun when she was born here, it's coming back. That's your birthday when the sun gets to the sun. Happy birthday next week. And so, it's very simple, these cycles. So as we go, we learn about the cycles. Because the cycles is where the juice is, it's where like, oh wow, this is what's happening, And it's not really about predicting the future. It's more about saying like, oh, right now, the planet Saturn is in your second house for the next 2.5 years. So for this 2.5 years, you're going to be learning lessons of responsibility in the house of money, resources, security, Because Taurus is the house of like grounding out, And so, it's a lesson, and you can use the energy how you want. If you don't know about the energy, then you're just sort of at its whim. Sometimes you're on, sometimes, a lot of times you're not. So to learn astrology is to learn how to be in flow. It turns out that a lot of people, if they knew what this wisdom had to offer, people would be beating down that door to get in this class to learn this knowledge. And so you're very lucky to be embracing this, because you will go from a life of inefficiency and struggle to a life of just harmony and flow. When you're in line with your cycles. Like today I woke up, I was really tired. I was like, oh my God, why am I so tired? And I looked at my chart and I saw the moon was sitting right on my 12th house cusp. The house of sleep and dreams. So I was feeling very inward. Every month when the moon goes through the 12th house, that's your astrological period. Women have actual menstruation cycles, but men even have their astrological, period when the moon goes through the 12th house. You just want to go inward and withdraw, or do something very spiritual. So I just went and meditated and just focused on this class tonight, and then I got this surge of energy because I was actually using that energy. I went inward, and it was like, I just feel naturally in my flow now. But yeah, I was like really tired. I was like, yawning and stuff. so wherever the moon is, and the moon's in Scorpio today. So we're starting this class under Moon in Scorpio. So expect to get some deep occult wisdom. Scorpio is about going to the depths, penetrating the core. It's the one archetype of transformation and rebirth. And today Mercury's in retrograde still over in Gemini. So actually it's back here. We got Venus and Mercury reversed. But yeah, Mercury's been going retrograde to Gemini. When Mercury goes retrograde, it just means it's going back around the sun in front of the Earth, like that. It ain't Mercury's fault. It's just got to go back around the sun, But for that 3-week period, the mind sort of goes inward, and people that are still focused on outward stuff doesn't really work out for them. You end up doing things twice a lot. So like this class is perfect to start under Mercury retrograde, because we tried to start this class before. So Mercury retrograde is the best time to do things you've been delaying. So 3 times a year that planet's going to go retrograde, and during those 3 weeks, it's like you should come into those 3 weeks with a list of stuff you've been delaying doing. You should come into those with a list of things you need to fix, because Mercury retrograde, if things are going to break down in Mercury retrograde, have your list of things to fix ready to go, and then you're attuned with the cycle. And the cycle's like, wow, this person's paying attention, and then you get more out of life. It's really cool. It's like squeezing orange juice. So
are we going to talk about that more later?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about.
I hear that a lot in astro, and it's typically what I hear as an excuse to do nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. Mercury retrograde has a bad rap, but it's a really beautiful cycle, especially for writing. And like me as a writer, I love to just go to coffee shops and hang out and write, because Mercury retrograde is the best time to get your mind flowing inward. See, normally the mind goes out, doot, 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 but when Mercury goes retrograde, the whole mental energy of the cosmos is going inward. It's like the universe flushed the toilet of thought. It's all coming back down, and everybody's still trying to do this, so they're going against the flow, and the river's taking them the wrong way, and so their brains are just not working right. So if you know, then you can flow. So that's the key.
Is that even more enhanced because it's in Gemini? Because we're in Gemini?
Yeah, it's in Gemini, so it's in its own sign. So it's like 3 times more powerful because it's got dignity. We're gonna learn. We've got a whole class about which planets go through which signs and everything. And so every planet governs a sign. Mercury governs Virgo and Gemini. And basically in ancient times, the Sun and Moon governed Leo and Cancer. And then Mercury governed the next 2 signs because Mercury was the next planet out, And so going around, Mercury governed Virgo and Gemini. That's why they're so mental, these signs. And then Venus governs sensual Taurus and artistic Libra. Venus, the love goddess. And then you got Mars governing the Aries and Scorpio. Really intense signs. Mars is the war god, mythologically. And then of course Jupiter governs Sagittarius, the seeker, and Pisces, the spiritual seeker. These are both very religious, spiritual seeking signs. And then of course Saturn, the end of the solar system, the old guard. The solar system ends right here. Saturn classically governs Capricorn and Aquarius, and Saturn governs time. The time lord. And these 2 signs have to do with time. This Capricorn is more the past, Aquarius is more the future. So and those rulerships are alive and kicking. Most modern textbooks will tell you that Uranus governs Aquarius, but it's wrong. Saturn still governs Aquarius on the personal level. Uranus is bringing in this new modern vibe, this new vibration and everything. And I always say, to differentiate, I say it has affinity with this thing, but it doesn't govern it. Because if you take away Saturn from Aquarius, or say Mars from Scorpio, you might meet a person with Scorpio rising. And Mars will tell you how their personality is on the next level. Like if you look at a painting has, like, say, a main theme, but there's all these subcolors and beautiful textures. And so there's 12 different kinds of Scorpio rising based on where Mars is. If you have someone Scorpio rising that has that deep, dark, mysterious look, dark glasses, curly hair, they're in the bushes with the binoculars, Scorpio rising, they're intense people, But if they have Mars in Leo, they're going to be more sunny, They're going to have more of a sunny disposition to their outer personality, because the ascendant, what's rising on this side of the chart, on the left, or from your perspective, what's over here on the horizon, is your rising sign, and that's your ascendant. We're going to talk about that a lot, but because that's like the birth moment, what was rising in the east. That's why we have the birth time as the focus, because you need the birth date, the birth time, and the birthplace. The birthplace tells you where you are on the earth in the longitude and latitude, so you can sort of orient yourself. And then the what planets are above you, what planets are below, and then the signs, what you can see, what signs rising and setting, and those are important because your setting sign is just as important as your rising sign. This shows how you are in relationships. So it's important to know what your flow is over there. And but like I said, if Scorpio was rising in the east, if Mars was in Gemini, that would be more of an intellectual Scorpio. They would have still that intensity and that emotional power of the Scorpio, the researcher, the detective, the sorceress. but at the same time, if Mars is in Gemini, you might find him at the library. If Mars is in Leo, you're going to find him at the circus, or playing, or doing some drama theater stuff. It's all different. So that's what that's about. And astrology.
Tiny little Earth in the middle.
What's that? Yeah, there's a little tiny Earth in the middle. With a little person standing on it. Whenever I draw my charts, I put a little person there, right under the midheaven, showing you're right here. I think it's a shame that they don't, in computer programs, they don't put Earth in the middle of the person on top, because that's what you're looking at. It's a diagram of your observational and perspective universe. The scientists will attack us and say, "Why do you still use geocentric astrology?" It's like, don't you know the sun's at the center now? It's like, well, don't you know that in quantum physics, the observer and the consciousness of the being affects the experiment? We're interested in not the Earth being the center, that the center of consciousness is at the center. Like when you drop on the planet and you take that first breath, at that moment, the structure of the solar system is infused into you. It's almost like your spirit comes into the solar system. I mean, there's billions of stars in this galaxy, and there's billions of galaxies. Why did you come to this one little star? And when your spirit comes into here, it's like a sponge wiping water off a cabinet. It soaks up the essence of it and just sort of squeezes it into your life. And at that moment, the pattern is injected into you.
Good analogy.
Yeah. You are that pattern. Everyone's born with a sort of a chance to have a spiritual mission. Everybody's born with a sort of spiritual mission on the planet. Not many people fulfill their whole missions. Most people fulfill 10% or less, because they don't understand all their potentials. If parents knew their instructions to their child, like, oh, my kid has a moon in Libra, the sign of the artist, in the 12th house of sort of like floating off into the visionary divine imagination. I'd have that kid off in the corner with some art supplies, like doing some, because if we just transform our educational system where it's based on the qualities of the individual, it would be so cool. And that's what it's heading towards that, but it's a long, slow process, of not trying to buck the system, but just create your own better system, and they'll just rise up, A lot of people are still trying to buck the old system, but there's a lot of cool new schools out that are sort of heading that way, like Waldorf and all these old schools. But, so everyone's born with a spiritual sort of potential, but not everybody uses it all. And astrology illuminates that, Astrology comes from this word, astro, which is stars, heavens, and logos, which is the divine mind, astrologos. So logos is sort of the intelligence, the creative force of the universe, and it also means language. It's the same root that we get from astrology, like the end of words, the study of. So it's the language of the heavens. Very simple, But the logos is only half the universe, though, in terms of the divine metaphysics. I got a whole rap on divine metaphysics. You can see it on YouTube. Just go to my YouTube station. But Sophia is the feminine sort of force of the divine, and Logos is sort of the masculine. Not in sexual terms, but in terms of like, you know, archetypal. You know, Sophia is would be like the yin, whereas Logos would be the yang. Universe can't turn without both of these. They're not in opposition. They're cosmic lovers, you know. So in Chinese they have this, you know, thing where a system moves towards maximum yang, but then it can't get all the way there, and then it goes back and starts shifting back towards yin. It's just the flow of change, you know. And so this is like the core. Well, the core is the one, you know, the eternal being. I call it infinite being. But when it divides into Sophia and Logos, you have divine patterning in the universe, Sophia, yin, which all earth and water signs take their inspiration from, you know. And then it divides, and then so this is one stream of consciousness. The other stream of consciousness, yang, is where the air signs and the fire signs take their sort of inspiration from. So you got air, fire, earth, water, and there's a lot more to that. I don't want to get into this right now because it's like we could go on that for like 3 days. But the structure of the universe and the creative impulse of the divine, and it divides into all. There's all these levels of just, and they all happen at the same time. And finally, you get down to archetypes and the signs of the zodiac, and you still don't even have a physical universe yet, you know. But there's an astro-spiritual universe that pervades this universe, you know. And in physics, they say there's only 4 forces: gravitation, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces of the atom that hold the atom together. But they're forgetting one force, the force of consciousness. It's the one force that let them think those forces up in the first place, you know. So they just chop that off and say, oh, we don't want to deal with that. But now they're having to deal with that. Quantum physics says the consciousness of the scientist is affecting the experiment. When he's watching, it turns out different than when he's not. They're like, this is crazy. So they're like, we don't even understand the universe, you know, because they cut off that one part, you know, the spirit of consciousness. One time I had a dream where I was telling someone that the spirit comes in, and then these 12 little segments here of the zodiac, and like Aries starts it off right on the fire finger, boom, you know, and then Taurus is about structure and building upon that initiation, and then Gemini is about knowing and pointing and naming, you know, and like asking questions and being curious. And then Cancer starts the next finger, and Cancer is the heart, the home, the heart. And if you look at the circle, it's like right in the center is the foundation. If you think it is the bottom, like the bottom of the chart, Cancer. And of course, Leo had to be the biggest ham on the center of the biggest finger. You know, look at me. No, but actually, the kingdom has to be built on the homes of the people, where your creativity is based on your ability to imagine from the depths. And then that leads to Virgo. And Virgo is about perfection and seeing the highest perfection of everything and analyzing things and looking around and going, what's everybody doing? And of course, Libra is about sacred marriages. Look where the ring goes. You know, and then after you get married, what happens to Scorpio? You die. You have to go through a rebirth, because by the time you see yourself through the eyes of another, you're going to change. Everybody's like, I don't want you to change me, but just being in a relationship is going to change you. Get over it. You know? But then if you go through that process, that mysterious process of rebirth, you come to Sagittarius, which is philosophy, the philosopher. You find the philosopher's stone through that love, and you become enlightened. You have meaning. And from that meaning, look at this. Far away from spirit, we have the first finger that starts an earth sign. Remember, we had fire, water, air. Libra's an air sign. Capricorn, we come to Capricorn. After Sag is Capricorn. So Capricorn, look at this. The earth finger. This is how big the physical dimension is compared to the rest of the universe. So you can understand why the scientists are saying that there's the dark matter philosophy. It's funny, mater means mother. The dark mother philosophy. They always say 90% of the mass in the universe is missing. In astrophysics, this is what they teach. They go, the way it moves, it can't move like this with this much stuff. You know, how is it doing that? And so they call it this 90% of the universe. They say it's just this dark matter. Maybe it's old dwarf stars that you can't see. You know, but it's the emotional and mental and astral and etheric levels of vibration. But anyway, furthest away from spirit, we have the little Earth dimension over here, or the physical realm. It's not very little; it's pretty big, billions of stars. But in order to deal with living in this world, we have to band into groups, queries. We have to recognize the power of the individuals, and we have to sort of build communities, and to deal with reality. And then after we build these communities, what's last? Pisces, the sign of spirit again. Mysticism and poetry and vision. So we started at spirit and we returned to spirit. This is kind of a cool analogy for the zodiac, That came to me in a dream. So
it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I wrote it down somewhere. I put it in this book when I was down in Key West. I told my friend Will, I said, Will, can you draw me a hand? So he drew me a hand, you know, and I described that whole process right here. So that's how I get visions, and I just go with like that little sheet. That was a vision this week. So I was teaching online. I teach online students all over the world, and basically I wanted to develop that so that when they're interpreting a chart, I can just, you know, oh cool, you have something to say about this, you know. And so this class, that's kind of the syllabus for this class, down the left side there. And so we're going to go through that. And and another thing in Hebrew, the word for astrologer is Asha, which is cool. It's, you know, Hebrew is one of the root languages, and they write kind of the other way. You know, like this. This is Aleph, and then Sheen, the S sound is like this little sacred flame thing, and then Pei F is this. So they write this way. So it's Asha F, which is interesting because is the Aleph. It's the infinite potential of the spirit. It means nothing able to be anything. So this is spiritual potential. It's kind of like yang, you know? Spiritual potential. And then, of course, Sheen is the sacred flame of love. It's one of the 3 mother letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And you got the water, the mem, the Sheen, the fire, and then the Aleph, which is the creative logos. So the Sheen is the sacred flame. And F, this PH sound, or the P sound, it means it's like a little mouth. They made it look like a little mouth talking, you know. And so it's communication. So the word they put together for astrologer was spirit communicates through the sacred flames. Wow. Is that cool or what? Yeah, because like their word for light, and really astrology is about cosmic consciousness through celestial radiation. I mean, we're getting meaning from light. We're like, oh look, Mars is shining light this way. So it's cosmic consciousness through celestial radiation. And actually, if you go online, I have a website called Astrology Illuminated.tv, and my slogan is celestial consciousness through cosmic radiation. So Astrology Illuminated.tv, and you can see a video about the whole metaphysics thing I was talking about. And there's a lot of supplemental videos, so if you watch those over the months, over the weeks, you'll start to get more. But the word light is interesting, cosmic, the radiation, the light, because in Hebrew the word for light is Aleph and Vav and Reish, which is, you know, A-U-R, Aur, Ura, the aurora, the light, the glow. And so, and the same as the city Ur, where Abraham came from a long time ago, was the city of light. You know, it's the city of Ur. Yeah, it's probably better to sit over there. I like to stand on this side for some reason. So I put the camera over there. But anyway, Ur means light. And so, if you look at it though, Aleph means spiritual potential. The U sound means it's like the spirit coming down into the void and bringing fertility into the void. And so this symbol here, the V, the U sound in Hebrew means fertility. And then this Reish, this R sound, means creative manifestation. So within the word for light is spirit fertilizing creation. So when we're looking at astrological planets and we're reading the light signature of a planet coming, it's like, wow, we're being fertilized for manifestation through the creative spirit. So again, this is all sort of metaphysics and everything, but it's really cool. I don't want to give a sermon up here or anything, but it's kind of cool when you look back at the root languages and the root. Then I tell my Christian friends, I say, hey, you know what it says in the beginning in the Bible? And they go, oh, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And I go, no. If you read it this way, it says, the first fruits of the Spirit aspiring to express eternity through a fountain of divine wisdom was the creation of the celestial dimensions and the manifest worlds. And they're like, no! It takes a poet to read Hebrew. But anyway, so there's a video about this online for your edification. So, can you pull up that one?
Which one?
It's checklist 2.
Checklist. Oh.
Astrology checklist 2. Is it there?
Yeah.
Just double click.
75%.
Yeah.
Hey.
There you go. Perfect. So yeah, so as a sort of where we're going here, we're going to be able to interpret this. See the 0? That's where you start. I like to start each chart with an inspiring introduction. You know? Ta-da! You know, I mean, it's like a book. When you start reading a book, you don't want a boring introductory paragraph. Somebody's gonna throw the book over their shoulder and never read it. So it's good to start with an inspiring introduction, and we'll get into what that is about. But then, educational statement. You know, a lot of people when they first come and get their chart up, they don't know what all these planets and signs and houses are. You know, so it's good to just break it down in a real simple format. I always just say that the planets are like the characters in the story. The chart's like your novel, the novel of you. You know, and so this is the story, and these are all the characters. You know, and each character has an agenda. That's why we're so conflicted. We got characters over here, and voices in our heads over here, and everybody's like fighting over the piece of the pie. And so some are forming alliances, some are fighting against others, you know, and you just feel crazy inside most of the time. But when you know all your parts, and you know when a part is asserting a need, you can give it a need. That's the thing in astrology. It's like when you have, like, say, Venus square opposed Neptune, like she does, you know you have a tension between Venus and Neptune. And so most people will cross out one and appease the other to, you know, and make this one, you know, subverted or repressed into the unconscious. And so they won't give out access to that energy. And then it'll come back out as a negative pattern. Like in the case of Neptune, it's like escapism. Neptune, the dream planet. So she might do lots of drugs or alcohol to not face that energy in her. You know? Did you do some of that in college? Yeah. Okay. All right. Just a little bit, huh? So then it gives you trouble in your Venus, your relationships. So until she starts accepting that Neptune, then her relationships are always going to be really, like, governed by that negative form of things what she's doing. And it's interesting because when I got with her, and she started doing her spiritual energy practice and doing massage healing. Now she's like head of the spa because she's like doing her path. The universe is like, come on, you're on your path now. So things are working out good over here. So, you know, so that's the thing. And we're going to study a whole class about aspects. One of my students calls this the spaghetti. You know, what's the spaghetti yell about, you know? And so, yes, there's a whole class on the sacred geometry of the aspects. Because you got all these angles, and you have a whole sheet there in your packet about what each angle means. And that's a whole other part of astrology. You know, when we get down here, you can talk about aspects. So when you're going through and you're talking about the sun, you want to bring in a nice spice statement. You want to talk about the elements it's in. I always call it the spice statement. It's like give it some poetry, you know? Call it poetic astrology. And of course, the element is in fire, it's in air, you know. The sun, by its element, shows what kind of fuel you're burning. So just simply tell that person, check. Say, oh, your life force burns strongest when, let's say they're an air sign, when you're partaking of the element of air, you know, intellect, communication, thinking, reasoning. You need air to feel fuel in you. I'm an Aquarius. I got all the air, and you know. So, you know, otherwise you're not going to feel vital. I mean, that little piece of information. Most people are feeling so fatigued in this society. You got all this electromagnetic energy running around. Everybody's like, ugh, and they got too much stress and too many schedules. And so just by knowing what brings them life, you know, what element, then they're going to know how to, like, get recharged, you know. Every day you need a dose of that, you know. And so otherwise you're not going to feel centered, the sun. You're not going to feel the glowing light. So if you know your sun's element, that's powerful, you know. So then you go down and talk about the qualities and dignities. Is the sun in a sign it likes to be in? If not, how can you work with that? And then you got this level here, which is the spiritual, mental, emotional, and the physical, the houses. So this level here is all about, like, what's the cosmic principle of the sun? Let's say the sun's in the sign of Sagittarius. Well, you're going to learn that Sagittarius has a spiritual principle. It's faith through divine inspiration, confidence, you know, enthusiasm. You meet people out of Sagittarius, like myself. I got 5 planets in Sag. I'm like, we can do anything. You know, they always have the big philosopher chin. You know, because they just have that sense of, like, sporty, outdoorsy, jump off a cliff, you know. Like, woohoo, you know, we can do anything. They have a shadow side, of course. When you get to the behavioral, that's when you start talking about the light versus the shadow. You know, Sagittarius can be full of confidence and enthusiasm and inspiration, but they can also overindulge, and they can also take on more than they can handle, you know. And they can also, you know, have a sense of, like, too much optimism. And that leads to rose-colored glasses thinking, you know, everything's fine, but it's not, you know. So, experiential, that's the experiential zone there. That's the houses, you know, these little divisions based on, remember the ascendant, that's the first house, second, third, go around. And those are the stages. So when I talk about this educational statement, I say, these are your characters. These are the planets. These are your characters. and each character is in a sign. So each character takes on a sort of a plot, an archetypal plot. That character wants that sign. It's constellated that way. It's motivated by that sign it's in. So it's emitting a little chart saying, I need this, based on the sign, If it's in Gemini, it needs more information. It's curious, it wants to know. If it's in Cancer, it wants more feeling, more heart, more sensitivity, more imagination. Einstein has Cancer rising. He said, imagination is more important than knowledge. The greatest scientist in the world saying imagination is more important than knowledge. He was a Pisces, too. So, that double water thing going on. But, so that's what I mean by bringing in the chart and just saying, like, the planets are the characters, the signs are the plot, what they want out of life, and the houses, the zones of life, these little houses, they weren't always called houses. It sounds weird, like houses in the sky. But the ancients thought that the planets were gods, and they thought that the gods had mansions. They were actually called mansions of the gods. Then they got demoted to houses. when the religion changed, they got demoted to houses, But actually, even before mansions, they were called watches, because it takes about 2 hours for a house to change, 2 hours for a different sign to start rising. If you're on the equator, Northern Hemisphere, it's a little bit different for these things. But yeah, it's about 2 hours for each sign to rise. And the thing is, when you're, it used to be called watches, because when those guys were sitting out on those ancient ziggurats in Samaria, the first astrologers that watched this stuff for 10,000 years, they didn't know Mars was the planet of motivation and fire and will and desire. But they watched Mars, and they saw Mars doing something in the sky, with Jupiter or whatever, and there was this big battle going on, like, wow, look what that planet brought. Or somebody would be born into that, and they were like, that's auspicious, let's watch. The kid would grow up and be like this great military leader, say, Mars is about war on some level. Mars is about ambition and fire and desire. So they just started, 10,000 years of watching the sky, you start to understand the meanings and the symbols. So that's where this comes from. It came down from the Sumerians, through the Egyptians, and went to India, of course, and went to Egypt in the Hebrew lands. Abraham brought it over, and then of course when Alexander came through and conquered all the way to India, there was this great ancient internet going on between India and Greece. That's why the systems that they have, we're just uncovering the old Hellenistic system in Greece, and it's an amazing system, and it has a lot in common with the Indian system, because they both come to the same root. So the Indian astrology, which is Vedic astrology, Jyotish, science of light, is very similar to ancient Hellenistic Greek astrology, and so there's been a whole uncovering of that knowledge with translations of ancient texts. They were translated once, but they weren't translated by astrologers, so the people that translated didn't know what they were talking about. Right. And so actual astrologers went and learned Greek and all these ancient languages, and Aramaic and all these Arabic, and they actually translated all this stuff. And the reason they had to learn Aramaic was because when the Dark Ages came and everything went, the fall of the Roman Empire, the Arabs were having their heyday. They were having a renaissance down there. And so they took all the beautiful Greek texts and the Indian texts, and they codified it and put it all together in these books. And so it was jamming in Babylonia back in when the Dark Ages were happening in Europe. Babylonia was like the center of all trade, like the center of the world, and there's all these great astrologers and everything. When an astrologer goes, if you're an American and you go over there and you tell them you're American, they're like, oh, American. But if you say you're an astrologer, they're like, whoa, they respect you. It's like going to Japan and knowing Japanese. They're like, whoa, you're cool, Because that's like their, if you're an astrologer and you live in India, you have that same status of a high priest and a lawyer. Over here, you're like some guy who's like mixed up or something. Yeah. What are you thinking? Not astrology? But really, the society's mixed up. And so the thing is that the Arabs nurtured astrology. And when the Mongols came through and conquered, the Mongol Empire was the greatest empire. It went from like Spain all the way to China. And so there was this flow going on, right? And then what happened was when the Moroccan people across the Moors, the Arabs over there, started invading in Spain, they built all these beautiful cities in lower Spain. And what happened when the Renaissance was, during the Renaissance, 1300s, they reconquered those guys. And they found these cities full of libraries, full of all these ancient Greek texts that they haven't seen for thousands of years. They're like, holy cow. So all these scholars in Europe just started going to Spain. And they took it back to Italy, and then the Renaissance happened. So that's how it happened. And then astrology was taught in every major university throughout the Renaissance, like 1300s on up until the scientific revolution. And then the science said, oh, we got to get rid of anything that's related to religion and beliefs. There was this big schism that went right down, and here we are today with our wonderful scientific paradigm and our society that's dying because we've squashed meaning out of it, you know. And our religions, you know, that think that they know the truth, and they can't even understand their own Bible if they don't understand this astrology. I mean, even the four living creatures before the throne of God: the lion, the eagle, the man, and the bull. These are the fixed signs, because in ancient times there was four royal stars, you know, Regulus in Leo, Antares in Scorpio, Fomalhaut in Aquarius, and Taurus. It has the star of Aldebaran. So these four stars were called the ancient four royal stars of Persia. They were like the big mega superstars that the whole universe hung on, you know. That's why these signs became the four living creatures for the throne of God. So it's like, you know, there's a lot about that. So I go into it in the movie. We have a whole section on astrology and religion, astrology and science and history. So if you want to learn all this stuff and get it from like 48 experts, check out the movie. Anyway, yeah, so you got this section here. So it's cool, you know, you have something interesting to say. So this class, this is like the syllabus, you know what I mean? We're going to teach you how to say something cool about each thing, you know? You know, that's just going to blow their mind, because when you're a chart interpreter, you're just reading the symbols, you know? And you don't know how it relates to that person. There's two styles of being an astrologer. Some are more the counseling astrologer. They'd prefer the client come in, sit down, fill out a questionnaire, or talk about their problems, and then go to the chart, you know, and say, okay, let's see what advice we can give you to work with that direct problem, you know, that you're having. I'm not that kind of astrologer, although most astrologers are. Most astrologers, the counseling type astrologer. I'm more the oracular astrologer. And don't worry, you can learn all, if you want to be the counseling astrologer, all this is going to apply for your counseling.
Can you say that word again?
What? Oracular? Yeah, oracular.
Like oracle?
Yeah, oracle. Yeah. Oracular astrology is not being afraid to say that this is about divination, and not making it about like, oh, I'm going to read your future. I've already told you, astrology is not about predicting the future. It's about seeing the river and aligning with it and flowing with it. And so by divination, I mean tapping into the divine consciousness, tapping into wisdom that you couldn't access on your own until you sat down with that person and looked at that chart, and something happens. You know, it's like that's why I called the movie here Return of the Magi. The Magi, those three guys that saved Jesus' life when he was a baby. You know, they're the guys that told Jesus' family, like, get out of here, Herod's coming with a sword and killing all the kids. And so they went to Egypt. But the Magi, the guys that brought the gifts, were Zoroastrian priests, just like the Hebrew priest was a rabbi. They're Magi, you know. And so the Magi, which means magic, you know, they practiced magic. Not in the sense of like, you know, I'm going to pull a rabbit out of a hat. Just like my friend Rick Levine says in the movie. He says in the section on what is astrology, he says, it's magic. He goes, but it's the same kind of magic you experience when you look at a painting and you feel inspired. Or hear a poem, like my kid's poem I just read. It's like, wow, you know, you felt something. Or, you know, hear music and you're just like, whoa, moved by it, you know. Astrology is that same kind, that's the kind of magic this is. When someone hears their chart for the first time, it's like they're returned to the birth vision that they were born with. They're returned to their cosmic instructions. They're like, wow, that's what I'm here to do. And that's why I'm so screwed up, because I got this square between these two planets, and I've been pushing this one down. And now if I give honor to that one and that one at different times and different, you know, and let them flow together, they can actually work together instead of fighting in me and creating all these energy leaks in my aura, and, you know, and then I have to like be in pain. So really, it's about enlightenment. Enlightenment. Urement. In Urement. Make a new word. See? So it's already coming down. But yeah, so when you do a chart, you are a magi, and it is a divination in the sense of going to the source, and that's the oracular side. And even people that do the counseling, you know, once they start counseling, you know, once they figure out the person's problems and want to look at the chart and counsel them, you know, it's like, then the magic starts anyway, you know. I prefer to say, you know, I always joke around, I say, I'd rather the client come in, sit down, shut up, and let's let the universe speak. You know, it's my joke about it, you know. I'm an Aquarian airhead, you know. But it's like, because I know that this cosmic wisdom, by the end of the session, I always tell them, you're not going to have any questions, you know. You might have a few detailed questions, like, you know, oh, let's get the timing on that again. But it's like, for the most part, if you read the chart in this flow here, whew, I mean, there's 144 boxes on this sheet. Just came out that way. That was kind of cool. I was like, hey, 144. But when you by the end of this class, we're gonna be able to go through this whole sheet and say something intelligent about each one, which is cool, you know. And you don't know how it's going to affect the person. You just say it and let it wash over them, and they know what their life's about. They know their innards better than anyone. And then when you say that, it applies to them in such a way that they're blown away. They're just amazed. They're like, wow, you know me better than I know myself, because they know that you know them because you're describing all the stuff that they feel, you know. And then yet you're elucidating it like in 3D, full color, you know, right there. So they're just like, dang. And so they're really enlightened by it. And of course, aspects of the sacred geometry, and then the evolutions, or the progressions and transits, the movements of the planets. For the inner planets, progressions are more important, symbolic time, because they just move really fast. You know, the moon shows your emotional state. You know, Mercury's your mind, your mental state. These things run at higher levels, faster. So these planets go around the sun, or go around the chart, you know, in 1 year, 1 month per zone. Whereas you get out here, you know, Mars takes 2 years to go around the chart. Jupiter takes 12. You know, it's bigger. Pluto takes 248. So these transits are the most important transits for like actual planets in the sky where they're moving, because they have a marked effect on things, and they bring in different seasons of the soul. And if you know it's coming, it's like, hey, for the next 6 months, I got Pluto, or let's not say Pluto, because Pluto takes about 2 years for a transit. Let's say Jupiter. For the next 6 months, Jupiter's going to be, well, actually Jupiter spends a year in the sun, because it takes 12 years to go around. We're going to have a whole class about that, about the different cycles. But Jupiter will take 12 years to go around. So for each year, you know, like right now Jupiter's in Christina's 6th house. It's been going through here. And I told her last year, I said, well, look, there's great changes coming in the 6th house, which governs your work, your service, your health, you know, and Jupiter's coming to expand things there. She ended up getting a promotion and got promoted to head of the spa. You know, it's like, wow, you know, so it's like, okay, because Jupiter's there, you know. They feel the power. They know that you're going to be a source of inspiration there because you got it just coming off your aura, you know. And things are going on. And when she signed the contract, I told her, sign it until this date, until Jupiter moves into here. Because then you're in a whole new zone. You're not supposed to be expanding in the work sphere anymore. You're supposed to be expanding in your 7th house of relationships and partnerships and companionships. Maybe by then you want to make a partnership with one of your spiritual friends and have your own spa, you know. So don't lock yourself in. Just look at the timing and flow with it, you know. So that's part of the value of astrology, is knowing.
Now I get what you're saying about riding the river, like.
Yeah. It's just
because
like,
otherwise she could have like found herself in a like right when that person wanted to have a partnership, she would have been locked into a contract.
Exactly. So you know, knowing astrology is. And when I do print someone's chart out, I also print out a list of all their transits for the year, so that I can flow. I mean, every month there's going to be a new moon in a sign, and there's going to be a full moon. The new moon is when the sun and moon get together. The full moon is when they get out opposite each other, you know. So when the sun rises, or when the sun sets, there's the sun setting, the moon rises, you know what I mean? Full moon is always coming up. So you can always tell, like, part of the beautiful timing of astrology is that when the new moon comes into a sign, it falls in one of your houses. And that field of life is where you're supposed to be initiating new beginnings, planting new seeds. 6 months, most people say, oh, you plant on the new moon, the full moon brings it to fulfillment, but that's only 2 weeks later. It's the full moon in the same place where the new moon was that comes actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later when the sun gets over there, and then the moon comes in here and says, full moon, based on the seed you planted 6 months ago. That's when the timing comes to its most flowering, you know. So like right now, she's sitting here, we just had a new moon in Gemini, which is in your 11th house, which is 11th house governs astrology. You're in astrology class. It governs community. It governs, you know, things like your goals for the future. It governs cosmic clique, your friendships, your people that you need to surround yourself with. So you're having all these new beginnings in this area this month. Next month, sun's in Gemini. Next month, the sun will be in Cancer. So, and it's funny, this is the same cycle every year, this cycle. You know, where Jupiter takes 12 years, this actual cycle, the lunation cycle, it's called, of the sun and moon. Every year, when the sun's in Cancer, the moon will come through there in July, and it'll be a new moon in her 12th house. And that's that, remember that rest period where you're tired? That's the 1 month of the year where you get to recharge your batteries. If you don't recharge your batteries during that month by taking time off and going inward and really spiritually focusing on, it's the sign before your ascending sign, this sign here. if you don't take time and do a little spiritual retreat, 6 months later when that full moon comes, you're going to get all fatigued and run out of gas because you didn't recharge your battery. You didn't plug in during that month. That's your spiritual vacation month of the year. See, me, I have Sagittarius rising. See? So for me, it's in Scorpio time. You know?
You said it's a new moon?
What?
Whenever the new moon's in
Yeah, when the new moon's in there, you want to plant seeds for... Basically, the 12th house is the house of your direct connection to the divine. So you want to, like, forget the world and just go on a little spiritual retreat and recharge your batteries.
Sign before your rising sign?
Yeah, so, like, what's your rising sign?
Scorpio.
So, yeah, the sign before Scorpio is Libra. So every Libra, when the sun's in Libra, the moon's going to come through, and that new moon, look on the calendar, bam, is your month of spiritual recharge. And that's when, and then the month after that, when the sun's in Scorpio and the moon's there, you come out of that dark place of meditation, prayer, and you just feel supercharged with energy. New moon in the first house. Because the first house is your body, yourself. And when the new moon's in the first house, it's the renewal of yourself. That's your astrological new year. Every year when the new moon's in your sign, your rising sign, that's the month where, that's your January 1st. That's when you make your resolutions.
That's where I'm at, right? I quit my job last month and did nothing for a month.
Yeah.
And now I'm in my first house.
What-
Rising Gemini.
Oh yeah, rising Gemini, yeah. If she's Gemini rising.
I'm on the flow.
Yeah. You're on the flow. You're in the flow. Yeah.
Scorpio just knows this.
Yeah. See, because last month was Taurus and was in your 12th house. Remember, 12th house is about escapism and running away and hiding and getting the hell out of here.
Right.
It's about spiritual retreat. So you quit the job and you're starting a new cycle now. So, very, very new year.
Yeah, that's perfect.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, I feel like I could have a job again.
Yeah. Well, check it out. If you're Gemini rising, next month the new moon's in your second house of money, resources, and planting seeds for that so it'll grow. So 6 months later when the full moon shines in there, you'll be like, man, I got bank. You know? It's like, yeah. So it's just beautiful natural cycle. You know? Do you know your rising sign? Pisces. So yours would be sign before Aquarius. You missed yours? In February you didn't rest, relax, spiritual retreat? Okay. It's okay. There's other chances. But yeah, so we'll be looking at that. So yeah, aspects are the sacred geometry. And aspects are cool. When we learn about aspects, the whole class on aspects. Because aspects have many dimensions. Aspects of the sacred geometry, they're the angles between the planets. And it's really cool because you can use aspects 3 ways. You can use it in natal chart analysis. Like, oh, my this is square my that, so I have a conflict. Or, oh, my this is trine my that, so I have a gift. You know, so you have to, like, work with that. But then, you can also use aspects with this. Like, when Saturn's coming through here, it might be squaring something over here. So aspects is like, I always say aspects is a 3-for-1 learning. You learn about the sacred angles and you get to apply them in your natal chart. You get to apply them by transit. Like, oh, this planet's opposing my this. You know, like right now, Pluto in Sag here is opposing Christina's sun sign. So it's changing her basic aura. You know, Pluto's rebirthing her basic sense of identity, who she is. You know, so it's rebirthing her life. So that only comes around every, 248 years? So when Kali, Pluto's like Kali with her spear and her necklace of skulls, and she's like, I'm going to kill you, but I'm going to rebirth you in the end, you know? And so it's intense when Pluto's making transits like that. So that's what I mean. You get to use the aspects through transits, like that opposition I was just talking about. And then you get to compare 2 charts. Like, wow, here's my chart, and here's my partner's chart, or my friend, and here's how we fit together. Like, oh, look, my Venus is squaring her Jupiter. I inspire aesthetically her philosophy. You know what I mean? It's like you can see aspects working in between charts. They're called inter-aspects, like between 2 charts. So that'll come too down the line. But the first thing I like to start out though teaching is actually about the houses. I used to start with the planets and the signs and then work my way up to the houses. But I've been thinking about the psychology of learning a lot. And about how we learn, like when we're kids. And the first thing we learn when we're little babies and grow up, we learn about like stuff and the people around us and me and mine and you and, you know, water. You know, we learn about stuff, you know. And the houses, which are these little zones here, you know, first house, second house, third house. These houses are the fields of life experience. They symbolize the fields of life experience. So it's important to learn about this stuff first, even though, you know, we talk about it down here. I just really feel like, you know, planets are like verbs. They're actions. Mars, desire. You know, Jupiter, expansion. So planets are like verbs in the language. And houses are like nouns, people, places, and things. That's important. Let's see. Can we get this one off of here?
What do you want?
The solar system. But thanks.
Hang on, I gotta get it.
Sorry. Planets are verbs. They're actions, Venus is going to harmonize, Mercury's going to mercurialize. You can even say Venus is going to Venusificate. So planets are verbs. Houses are nouns, They're the people, places, and things in our life, Your relationship, 7th house. Your money, 2nd house. Your career, 10th house, Your relationship with God. I don't know if you want to call it a thing, but still, it's something. It's a concept. It's an experience you can have. So this is the experiential zones. And nouns, you need nouns for experiences. You need places to go to and people to interact with. And things to collect or whatever. So, the signs are interesting. And we're going to get a whole class on the signs. The signs, we might even have enough time in that 3 hours to cover the signs. In Hebrew they call it the zodiac, the Mazaroth. That's where that saying Mazel Tov comes from. Mazel Tov means good fortune, but it actually doesn't. If you look at the original Hebrew, it means may the zodiac be with you. A lot of Hebrews don't even know this, because people have forgotten all this ancient wisdom. I'm one of those weirdos with Mercury and Capricorn that likes to go find it all out again. My mind is in the sign of the wise elder. Even though my moon's in Gemini, so I'm more like the soul of Peter Pan. So, anyway, you understand yourself, and people are like, you're a trip. And I'm like, no, I just know who I am, because I know my archetypes, and I like to be them. I like to let them be through me, So, there's no making excuses for yourself. You just are what you are, and you know it. And then, when you know it, then you're more in tune with your life. Everything flows, Like me, I just made a movie, People are like, how did you make a movie? I was like, I don't know, man. Because at the end of the credits when they roll, there's like hundreds of people that are involved. I pretty much did all those jobs, except for the music, But, out of nowhere, I got to the point where I ran out of money and I needed a supercomputer for editing. And Jupiter was coming to my Sagittarian ascendant. And I was like, Jupiter, planet of inspiration, you started this vision in my 12th house when you hit my Jupiter. And I got the vision for the movie. Now I'm activating it in my first house. I was doing it, going to conferences, filming and everything. And then suddenly I ran out of money. It was time to edit the film. And I was like, oh, gosh. And so I got there. I put it out on my podcast, cosmicweather.com, that I needed donations for the movie. One of my clients that I have seen for 5 years in a row, that I've inspired her to realize her potential. She calls me or emailed me and said, what do you need? I really want to help you with your movie. And I sent her an itemized list saying, I need like $16,060. And, and she wrote me an email back the next morning and said, wow, I wasn't planning on spending that much, but you know what they say, you get what you give. She goes, I'll FedEx you a check for $17,000 tomorrow morning. Wow. And I got it the next day. And free money coming at me. Because Jupiter was on my ascendant saying, if you believe in you, we believe in you, let's go. So Jupiter transits are like that, And then she sent me another $3,000 6 months later, under the full moon, opposite that new moon, because I needed to buy that projector, which was $3,000. So I could show it at conferences and stuff. Anyway, verbs, okay, so signs. Signs of the zodiac, Mazaroth, remember? I think it's spelled M-A Mazaroth.
Means sign of the zodiac?
Yeah, signs, it means the 12 signs of the zodiac in Hebrew. Which is funny because you'll never see that word translated in the Bible. Because the only place where it's listed, God is talking about it, and he's telling Job, in the book of Job, he says, do you know that I have created the 12 signs of the zodiac, and I bring them forth in their seasons, and how I have created the principles of the heavens and given them dominion over the earth? And so I tell my Christian friends, I was like, God's really all about the zodiac. And they're like, no, astrology's the work of the devil. I'm like, well, why is God in your Bible saying that, the 12 signs of the zodiac he crafted? And so they don't like it when you know too much. So anyway,
Quiet about
they're like, well, all you need is Jesus. So I'm like, well, let me turn you over here to the book of Luke 21:24, where it says under the signs of the end of the age, Jesus says, there will be signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars. And the word for stars is kochab, which actually means planets. So it's like, so Jesus is talking about there's going to be signs in the heavens. In other words, he was trained in understanding seeing the signs in the sun and moon and stars. Actually everybody was back then. It was natural to know about this stuff, but we've forgotten. So anyway, the Mazzaroth. So the signs. The signs are cool because the 12 signs of the zodiac are archetypal templates. They're like the 12 immortal thoughts of God, you know. They are the archetypes, you know. The word archetype comes from arcane and typos. And arcane means original or ancient, like archaeology, study of the ancient, of the original cultures. And it comes from the root word arcus, which means to govern. Like monarchy, government by the one. Democracy, government by the demos, the people. So, arcus, to govern. Typos comes from Latin, it means kinds. It actually comes from the same root as imago, different. So the image. So the way I like to see it, archetypes are the original governing images of the divine. It's like we all have all 12 within us. All 12 of these archetypes live in each of us. You know, there's in each of us there's a healer. In each of us there's a warrior, Aries, a builder, a storyteller, a healer, a king, a magical child, the troubadour, the wise, the sacred servant, the mentor, the artist, the lover, the diplomat, the scorpionic researcher, the alchemist, you know, the Sagittarian philosopher, the gypsy, the truth seeker, the traveler. There's the Capricorn executive, you know, the wise elder, the Gandalf of the tribe, right? Wise old man or woman. And then Aquarius is the cosmic genius, the humanitarian, the reformer, the inventor. And then Pisces is the mystic, the poet, the visionary artist. So we all have all 12 of these in us, strangely mixed. But it shows where the planets fall when we're born in our charts. That's where we're working. That's where they're working through us. They're alive. So these are living things. They have their own lives of their own, just like stars do. Most astrophysicists have shown that most stars in the galaxy are binary stars. There's two stars hanging out together, forming little planetary families. So there's other levels of consciousness that we don't even know about because we're just not tuned into that.
Can you repeat that line? Archetypes are the original...
Archetypes are the original governing images of the universe. The arcane typos. The original governing types or kinds or pieces of the building blocks of the universe. I mean, they have building blocks that create them, and we'll get to that when we talk about science. But that's the basis, you know, of the archetypes. So you hear this word archetypes thrown about a lot, you know. When a movie has a lot of strong archetypal themes, it's really popular, you know, because everybody's like, wow, that's really cool, you know. Like if you look at Star Wars, one of the famous movies, the sun was, first of all, George Lucas went and read Joseph Campbell's book, The Hero of a Thousand Faces, and learned about the hero's journey, and he modeled the movie exactly in the stages of the hero's journey, even down to like, meeting the mentor, there's Obi-Wan, you know, into the belly of the pit, they're in the trash compactor, you know, so, you know, it's all modeled that way. And if you look at any movie, there's going to be a sun, the hero, with his sidekick, Mars, Han Solo, rah, who's in love with who? The princess, Venus, the diplomat, Mercury, who's kind of like the communication droid, C-3PO. He's kind of like the moon, too, because he worries a lot. He's like a really motherly with R2. R2's like Uranus. You never know what Uranus is going to do. It's just like this, the freak inventor planet, the technological genius, the rebellious one. Pluto, sort of like Darth Vader, you know. Dun, 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 the part we all fear within ourselves. It's really a symbol of our own shadow. Pluto is like that. Saturn's sort of like the empire, the big structure that's in your way, you know. So these are archetypes. When stories take these and inject them, I'm writing a whole book about. It's called Archetypes of Character, and it's all about using astrology to create characters. Because when I create characters for my fantasy novels or my role-playing games, I take a 12-sided dice and I roll, what's his sun sign? 3, Gemini. What's his moon sign? 11, Aquarius. And I fabricate a fictional character. And then suddenly, in a couple rolls of a dice, I can actually act like that character. Or if that character in my novel needs to speak, I say, it's Mercury's in Scorpio, so I'm going to give him sort of a deep, mysterious voice, you know? Wow. And so it's a good way for artists to really break out and work with their languaging for that. So anyway, signs. Signs, okay, if houses are nouns, people, places, and things, planets are verbs, you know, they're the occupants of the houses, they're putting actions in there. One astrologer said it this way, the houses are like the rooms, and this is one giant house, And the houses are like rooms in your house. And if a planet's in the room, that means there's action happening in that room. That kind of action. Like if Mars is in there, he's probably breaking stuff. Ah! No. Or motivating, giving a motivational speech. But signs are two ways. If signs are related to verbs, they're sort of adverbs. You know, they describe the verb. You know, if Mars, the planet, is in the sign of Taurus, it's going to be like a slower, sensual Mars. You know, the chef. You know, it's going to be more like the listener. Whereas if Mars is in, say, Aries, that's like, rah! It's like that guy that drives on your bumper, you know? It's like, get off my bumper. But he's like, get out of the way, you know? Because Mars is in Aries in that guy, and he just needs to go, you know? Christina's dad has Mars in Aries, and whenever we go for Christmas, I just sit back and say like, dang. He's like, what's wrong with these people? I'm like, you know, and I kind of respect because I have Mars and Sag, but Mars and Sag is a little more chill than Mars and Aries, you know? So, so signs and adverbs. And then, of course, when you relate a sign to a noun, it's more like an adjective, which is, you know, a word that describes a noun. You know, if you have a blue house, it's different than a red house. So an Aries house would be like a red house. A blue house would be like a Cancer house, water house. You know, so that's that. And then, of course, aspects, just to make this point final, the sacred geometry, parts of language analogy here. Aspects would be like the conjunctions, you know. And I'm not talking conjunctions like this planet's conjunct that planet. I'm talking the parts of speech, you know, the ands, the buts, you know, the thens, you know, all the little pieces that connect it all together in language. And it's funny because in astrology we say that, we'll say stuff like that. Oh, your Venus is in Gemini, but it's opposing Neptune. You know what I mean? But that opposition is the but. It's like, oh, but, you know, it's not just Venus and Gemini. That's why astrology, you know, cookie cutter sun sign astrology doesn't really work. And it's really not meant to work. It's just sort of this. It was actually developed because this guy Alan Leo in Europe in England kept getting in trouble for telling the future in his astrology column. And so basically they made it so he basically got out of trouble with the law by just writing these sort of vague descriptions. And he just used the sun sign because everybody could make it. And then it got really popular, and then every newspaper has it now. But it makes astrology look bad. But it keeps astrology in the consciousness. So if people want to go deeper, they can, you know. So anyway, so that's like the parts of the language, you know. And then the transits are sort of like what's happening, you know, the actions, like what's going on now, the changes, you know, the flow. You know, you don't just have a chapter in a book; you have lots of chapters, and all kinds of changes happen. So that's really cool. Here we have the solar system. I love this picture because I used to write all this out. Now I just made a sheet and projected. It's getting easier with new technology. But you have three parts of the solar system. You know, you have this part here, the sun out to Mars, including Mercury, Venus, and the Moon. Of course, there's the Earth right there. And that's the symbol for the Earth. Is, you know, the circle with the cross. Symbolizing, you know, just like what a chart looks like. Every chart has this symbol right in the middle of it. You know? Rising signs over here. Midheaven's there. That's a chart. That cross goes back way before the Christians came along and stole it. Or the Celtic Christians in this case. That's a Celtic cross. But it goes way back to the Babylonians and Sumerians, you know? And in ancient times, a cross symbolizes the meeting place of the four elements: fire, earth, air, water. You know? So this is, and it symbolizes coming into manifestation. So matter. So, which is funny because the root word of matter is just like pater is mother. Pater is father. So matter. So it's the manifestation. It's like the earth coming into being, form. What sex gives birth to the forms? the mother, right? Here's the spirit. So, isn't that fascinating there? That spirit and matter conjoined in the symbol for the earth. Here we are. And of course there's another symbol, an arc, which is like a piece of spirit. And that's consciousness. A lot of books will translate it as mind, but it's more like mind and heart together, you know, mind, heart. In Japanese they have a word for it, kokoro. And they have this symbol here. You've probably seen it. It means heart. I like to put a spirit around. That could be a good symbol. Keeping your heart centered.
So what does it mean in the solar system? Is it
Consciousness?
No, the circle with the cross.
That's the Earth.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the Earth. Good old Earth. Right where we're standing. So that's the Earth. So it's really cool when you look at astrology symbols because every symbol is composed of one of these three, or a combo, or a little dot. The dot is like a point of reference, you know, or being, point of being, you know. So like the symbol for the sun is spiritual being. You know, it's like a point of manifestation at the center of spirit. You know, and it's the sun is the symbol of your path of self-realization, your ego. In not in the negative sense of ego, but in the positive sense of like an identity. You're a separate person from the ocean of dissolution. You've dissolved out of the ocean of oneness into a point of consciousness. So it's a point of consciousness within this circle of spirit. The moon's cool because the moon is like spirit, but like turn it around. So it's kind of like spirit listening to its own inward being. You know, it's like the moon's very reflective. The moon is soul. The moon is our soul. Like when you look at a chart, when you see someone's moon sign, you say you have the soul of the whatever archetype it's in. Like mine's in Gemini, the sign of the storyteller. You know, I like to tell stories. I'm a writer. The shadow side is you can be a great liar or a great fiction writer. You know, so you have to balance that out. Gemini is the messenger. It's the shapeshifter, the Peter Pan, the trickster. You know, all these archetypes. The coyote and the Native American mythos. So you got Gemini being the soul of me, because I have that sign there. Anybody else here moon in Gemini? No? Jim Carrey has his moon in Gemini, and he kind of acts like me, so he's like, yeah. So moon in Gemini people, we can't stand still. We just got this movement thing going on. Anyway, the moon and the sun are beautiful symbols. Look at the other symbol. Venus is spirit over matter, the symbol for the feminine. And we all have the feminine within us. It's the archetypal feminine, which doesn't mean just masculine or feminine. It means, you know, every man has an inner woman. And if men could just get in touch with their Venus, they would be whole. You could find, there's this sacred marriage that happened. The ancient symbol for Mars was that, by the way. See? Matter over spirit. And so, Mars is about like dealing out here with the matter over the spirit. And the spirit behind the matter. And then this is the spirit over the matter. And of course, Mars took on this in time, and then kind of got phallic over time. Got excited, but you know, Venus and Mars, they're one, and everybody has a sacred marriage inside them that needs to happen. And if you know your Venus well and you know your Mars well, you have this sacred marriage in you that's like your core relationship. Then you can have good relationships out here because you got your core relationship going on. You know, I got my Venus and Mars at the same sign. Sagittarius. So they're all about exploring and traveling and going to libraries and, you know, understanding other cultures. So when I go to the library and study other cultures, I'm not conflicted inside because they both want to be there. But someone like Christina, though, she has Venus in Gemini with her Mars in Virgo. The Mars in Virgo wants to be at the spa healing people, right? Venus in Gemini wants to be at home on the laptop downloading iTunes music. Woohoo! Have a little party. So they're conflicted. She has to learn to work that out in herself to find wholeness and balance. That's the worst aspect you can have between Venus and Mars is the square. But it doesn't mean it's bad. It's just the toughest one to sort of. It takes longer to analyze it out. Usually after 30, it becomes a gift if you've worked on it and know about it and flow with it. But yeah, everybody has all these like stuff, kinks in their aura, and they got to learn how to work it out. So yeah, so Venus and Mars are cool. And then of course Jupiter is consciousness or mind. There's Jupiter over matter. Mind over matter. I can do anything. It's confidence. It's expansion. It's the symbol of growth. Wherever Jupiter is in your chart, in your houses, these planets are more important by houses than signs. The outer planets. The reason why is because everybody has Uranus in the same sign, born within the same 7 years. So that's generational. These are generational planets out here. Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. Jupiter stays in the same sign for a year. Still a lot of kids born the same year, you know, so it's not the same Jupiter sign. Saturn takes about 2.5 years to go through a sign. If educators understood that this class coming in has Jupiter in Leo. They need more drama and fun to learn. Next year will be Jupiter Virgo. We can get back to the rote memorization Virgo Jupiters. It's like, okay, and plus Saturn. Saturn's about control and authority and structure. Every 2.5 years, a new sort of generation comes along that needs a new power paradigm.
Is that why Virgos are so good in school?
Yeah, Virgos,
they're always
Gemini.
taking notes.
Yeah. They're like figuring it out. They're like, this is cool. Let's analyze it.
Yeah.
Whereas Mercury.
You gotta sit next to one.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Yeah. Whereas say like someone with like Mercury and Pisces would just be like over there wanting to dream and think about like Star Wars and stuff or whatever. Like, wow, I saw Lord of the Rings this weekend. Oh wow, I love that person over there. Wow, I'm not even paying attention. It's like that teacher needs to know that kid has Mercury and Pisces. And so you can give them little fantasy projects to work on. And not grade them on rote memorization, because that kid's not going to do well. I don't care what you do.
I'm Mercury and Scorpio, and that's why I love energy healing class, because it's all about
the internal mystery
finally
dynamic.
interested in school. I'm like,
Yeah.
I get school I can go to.
Totally, yeah. Once you find the kind of learning style you got. Every kid has a learning style based on their Mercury and based on their third house. The third house is the house of learning and communication and mind. And
So is Chinese astrology in line with Jupiter then?
yeah, Chinese astrology is in line with Jupiter. Because every 12 years, you get that cycle. So, yeah, totally. Like, when I meet fellow boars, I'm like, hey, you have Jupiter and Sag! Because you're born in the sign of the boar. So, yeah, so if you know that crossover, you can link that. But check out Saturn. Saturn is the cross matter over mind. It's the opposite of Jupiter. See? My point I want to make here was that this level down here is the personal sphere. It's like very personal. Your desire, Mars. Actually, I think this is the shape of a human soul right here. You have the sun, your creative life force. This is my definition of soul right here. You have my mind, Mercury, thinking. You have a heart, the moon, emotion. You have Mars, you have willpower. Every human soul has will. That's the last ingredients of the soul, free will. And then Venus, love. Every soul has love in it, And so this is, and you have your karmic axis here, the nodes of the moon. And those nodes symbolize the points where the moon's path meets the sun's. And since the moon is soul and the sun is purpose, there's soul's purpose. We'll learn all about the nodes later. But yeah, they're called the nodes. They're actually called the lunar nodes because they're the moon's nodes. Every planet has nodes. Neptune has nodes. But Neptune's nodes don't move. But really slow. But the moon's nodes do move. And they take 19 years to go backwards through the zodiac. So everybody has a nodal axis in their chart. Like if you look at Christina's chart, you can see, okay, here's her north node's in Leo. Her south node's in Aquarius. So she's coming from Aquarius to Leo. In other words, she's steeped in this. The bottom is the south node, what you're holding onto. It's your addictions, but it's also your gift to other people. It's her vision of humanity, and we're all equal, and the cosmic tribe. But in this lifetime, she needs to step out of that, the council, and become a performer, become a Leo. And she's got Leo rising to prove it. It's like, you doubly need to do this, You need to go out there. Whereas me, it's funny, when we met, I have my south node in Leo with my north node in Aquarius, opposite her. Because we're 9 years apart. And I said, look, I'm the performer. I'm like the prince who roll out the red carpet, And I've said lifetimes of nobility and performing and all this crazy creativity. So a lot of creativity. But this lifetime, I got to get over myself and do something for this tribe. Do something for humanity. Use that brain power, right? Einstein and Elvis had that same axis. Einstein and Elvis. Elvis stayed stuck in his Leo South Node. He became the performer. He was even called the King Leo. And he died of a heart attack. Leo gave his heart from a drug overdose. So yes, he did some shocking things with his music. And yes, he did some humanitarian activities. But he wasn't personally fulfilled in his life purpose. And he got addicted to his addictions here. So your South Node, it's sort of a dangerous place. It's tricky to navigate from the south to the north. Over a lifetime, you want to be remembered for your North Node. Einstein played the violin. Einstein was creative as hell. But he was remembered to be the scientist, the sage, the humanitarian, the cosmic genius. He was remembered for his North Node. And he lived a nice, long, happy life. I was in the library in University of Colorado, and I came across a book on Einstein, and it was like his memoirs and stuff. And I saw the last letter that he had ever written in his life. He was writing when he died. And I saw the pen stroking off the page.
Oh my God.
I was like, wow. It was like a moment. It was just like, it was his last contribution to the tribe. Yeah. So, Well, so those nodes are important, as you can see. You really want to go towards your north node, but you want to use the gift of your south node to get there. Like me, I'm an astrologer. Aquarius governs astrology. I'm on my path. Why? Because when I was born, I have the sun aligned with my north node. So I got lucky that my sun, my radiant light was going, be this. So I started when I was 14, you know. Some people have their moon aligned with their south node, and they're really in trouble because their emotional needs, everyday needs, is from their addictions of the past life stuff.
That's mine. My south node and moon in Cancer.
Yeah. So it takes you people a little longer to get on your path because you're struggling with more like stuff to work through. You know, it's a little bit trickier the territory. You know, some people like me are lucky. Like the path is right there shining. We're like, oh, okay. People like you are like, oh my God, there's a chasm and there's a broken bridge. And I'm like,
couple rehabs.
Couple rehabs. Because you got that moon, that what you need to feel emotionally content, in the same sign as your addictions of past lives. The south node isn't just one past life. It's sort of a conglomeration, the archetypal memory of a whole set of them. And if you don't want to think of it in past lives, you can also think of it in terms of genetics. You know, your cellular cells were in your mom and dad, and they were in their moms and dads, going all the way back. I think the Bible says that the sins of the ancestors for 7 generations are in you. If you tracked it back, there's like 144 people that are like behind you, standing behind you, that are like feeding you all these karmic stuff, what they experienced. And you're hearing one person going, God, I gotta work out all this stuff. Sometimes I have to tell the ancestors to shut the hell up so I can do my life, you know?
What if your Saturn's in your north node?
Well, Saturn on the north node is interesting because Saturn's about limitation and blocks.
Yeah.
And so it's about boundaries. And so it sort of blocks you from your destiny. But as you hit the Saturn return at 30, and you get older and wiser and take more responsibility, you become friends with Saturn. And then Saturn loves you, and then it opens the gate. So you have to get older, or you have to get more mature or more responsible. And then suddenly Saturn's like, wow, you're taking responsibility. Open the gates to our destiny! You know? And so it just works like that. But anyway, we'll talk about that as we go. There's a lot of cool stuff. I mean, look at Pluto. Pluto is body, mind, spirit. It's the only symbol where the circle is not touching the rest of the symbol. It's the eternal surrender person, you know? So when I see Pluto with his hands up like that, I surrender. I think of the poem by Hafiz called Tripping Over Joy, where he says, what is the difference between your experience of existence and that of the saint or the mystic? The saint knows that life is a sublime chess game with God, and that the beloved has just made such a fantastic move that now the saint is tripping over joy, bursting out in laughter, saying, I surrender! Whereas you, my dear, still think you have 1,000 serious moves. So Pluto's about going into that kind of consciousness of just power through surrender, you know. So yeah, you could fight and everybody die and we have all these dead warriors on the battlefield, or you could surrender and make peace and just live a nice life. But really, render means to melt. It's the Scorpio principle of empowerment through surrender. Render means to melt. Sur means like the surf, like the highest point in the surf. It's like flowing with the divine will. You know, aligning your personal will, your Mars, your human will, with the divine will. And there's a relationship between Mars and Pluto. You know, they're like higher. That's like the higher octave of Mars is Pluto, divine will. Venus is love. Neptune is divine love. Mercury's mind. Uranus is divine mind. The Sun is your creative life purpose and identity, while Chiron is your higher self and your higher life purpose and identity.
That's just like the layers of the food.
Yeah, totally. Chiron's your visionary self. I call it the visionary self. It's not like the word higher and lower self, because lower just sounds like we're degraded. So it's like the visionary self. Anyway, yeah, so you got all these parts. And then, okay, look at Uranus. Uranus is, you know, 2 arcs connected with a cross and a circle. So Uranus is spirit working through matter to unite the 2 poles of consciousness, the Logos and the Sophia I was talking about earlier, the yin and the yang. So Uranus is like, looks like a Starship Enterprise. It's like, you know, it's the planet of technology, invention. I mean, when this planet was found in 1781, what was happening on the planet? Well, the American Revolution just happened, and the French Revolution was gearing up. It's just all over the country. People were talking about democracy and down with the opposites on Leo and the rights of the people, you know, Aquarius, community, and invention. You know, Benjamin Franklin was out there with his lightning bolt, you know, and his kite, you know. And so you have all that Uranian stuff going on.
Can you say that again? Spirit working through matter to...
Spirit working through matter to unite the 2 poles of consciousness, the 2 streams of consciousness in the universe. The stream that's the feminine stream, which is the Sophia, the invisible side of God that we don't see, but it's the fabric of the universe, space versus light, and logos. Logos is the creative power, but it can't create nothing unless it's got fabric. You gotta go down the store and get some fabric before you make that vision happen, right? And so the Sophia is the feminine, the fabric. It's the invisible fabric of the universe that we don't see because it's so mysterious. It doesn't want to be seen. But when it shows up in form, everybody's like, whoa, a beautiful sunset. Whoa, beautiful women. I mean, women are basically the feminine side of the divine in form. So even women be checking women out, like, whoa, look at you, because you're the Sophia in feminine form. Men have that on the inside, and women have the logos in form on the inside. It's like we're all mixed up, but we're all one, So it's kind of cool. And then of course this here is the collective zone. The social, collective or social planets. These, like Jupiter's culture. What's your religion? Saturn's like organization and structure, governments. These are more like what's your organization paradigm? People that have strong Saturn aspects to say their Mercury are going to be really organized in their mind because they have a paradigm of structure working with their mind. So this is the collective, and of course this here is the transcendent. So that works out. We're going to talk about this more, but I just wanted to go into just give you the breakdown of these are the most important planets for a person, and these are next most important, and these are next most important. I mean, if you're a mystic and you're tapped into the spiritual path, and you're like one of the Jesuses on the planets, you're going to be taken over by these forces because there's a transcendent thing coming through you, And so these become more important. And when you have these planets in aspect to these planets, you're sort of a vessel for these forces. You know what I mean? Because they're coming down through your pipes. This is like your mind, your will, And so it's important to use those wisely and to know about them. So those aspects are, if you have Venus square to Mars, like she had, that's one thing, But if you have Venus square to Pluto, it's coming in from a deeper vibration, So it's a really more potent square that's trickier to work with unless you have a lot of wisdom about what Pluto's about. I always call this the organic universal truth, and if you don't get it, you're out. No, I'm just kidding. So
the sheet was for that lecture.
What?
Was the sheet for that lecture, that part of it?
No, we're gonna do this again.
Okay.
But yeah, you can use that if you want. Right on it. But we're gonna show this.
Did you say you're gonna save it? I'd rather type it and put it on my computer and run it.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that sheet again. We're gonna bring this all up again. I just wanted to start out there. Could I have the one that has about the angles?
Yes, sir.
Because the angles are. There we go. Ding! See, I used to draw this stuff. But I can draw a pretty good circle. But this is a good circle. So anyway, so the angles of the birth chart are crucial because they're the most important houses. And actually, even before that, let's talk about the what's the other one?
I don't know.
What are the angles?
The other side?
No.
Angularity.
Angularity. Yeah. Right. No. The other one.
Okay.
Let's see here. Try another one. Try another one.
Qualities.
Oh, I can look up there.
Astro symbols. Oh yeah.
Astro symbols, birth chart. I don't see it. Anyway, we'll work with this one. Angles.
Is there somewhere else I can look?
Well, actually, in your packet, there's this one here. It's chart. Oh no, angles of the birth chart. Correct. That's it. Angles. Okay, so the first house is the house of the self. And when I say the first house, I mean this whole zone right here. So if you have a planet in there, that planet's going to be really strong in yourself. Any planet that's near an angle takes on more strength. It's like double strength, But if it's on the ascendant, this is you. The ascendant is the symbol of the self. This is you. the ascendant is the same thing as the rising sign. Excuse me. Actually, the ascendant is actually that point. The ascendant. The rising sign is the sign that gets cut by that point, like in the zodiac. So whatever sign, like if you have Sagittarius there, then that would be a rising sign. But you'll hear them used interchangeably. Rising sign, ascendant.
But they're not the same?
Well, technically the ascendant is just the point where that line is happening on the horizon when you take your first breath. And the reason it's the self is because the ancients were really into things rising, and setting and all that. And when they saw something rising, they called it an appearance. So when something was rising, it was making an appearance. And so when you come on the planet, you're making an appearance. When you come out of the womb and take that first breath, you're making an appearance, And so the first house has to do with you showing up, That's why, and ancients recognized right away, like, wow, the way people look is related to whatever sign's rising, And even parents will name their kids unconsciously. They don't even know astrology. They'll name their kids unconsciously based on the rising sign. Like I've seen Libra, the sign of like harmony and balance and law. And, their kids will be named, they'll have Libra rising, and their kid will be named Justice, or Harmony, And then, like, I've seen kids with Virgo rising named, like, something like David, or Vera, or Riva, or even Virginia, the Virgin. I'm like, wow, you were named them to your rising sign. Or, like, people like me with a fiery sign rising, Sagittarius, will be like a hard cuss, like Kelly, you know what I mean? And Kelly, if you look in the Irish, means great warrior, servant of the king, okay. So if you want to have a kid and name him, look at his rising sign, find the planet that rules that sign, find out where it is in the sky, in the zodiac, and you can come up with a cool name that totally matches their soul, But anyway, that's what I would do. But
did you do it?
No, actually, my kid his name is Arion Brazenwood, and I picked his name out when I was 12. When I have another book that I wrote. It's a novel called Brazenwood. It's a 12-book fantasy series, one for each sign of the zodiac. Got to bring all these principles out through the story, the characters. And so anyway. The main character is this elven archer guy, kind of like Legolas in Lord of the Rings. He's a wood elf with darker hair, and his name is Arion Brazenwood. And I came up with a name when I was 14, and I knew I was going to have him in my life eventually because I started talking to him at night. I had the spiritual connection with his soul, and I'd be working on the novel, and I feel his presence in the room. I'd be like, whoa! So I just figured it was him. So I started talking to him, and next thing you know, 12 years later, he manifested on the planet. It was a funny story too because I was like sitting there and. My wife at the time, who's my ex-wife now, but she's cool. And we were in there in the midwife place, and it was like, there was this big storm outside. And at first it was all sunny day in Key West, but it started happening real fast. It was like 10 centimeters dilated, like bam. So it took him 2.5 hours to get here, just 2.5 hour labor. So intense, fast, and about 3/4 of the way through it, I was like, come on, Tracy, push! Gemini's rising and my moon will be on his ascendant. We'll be like homies, storytellers. She's like, shut up about it! Because she was pushing, And next thing you know, when he came, suddenly the sky darkened outside. This massive storm came. The midwife was a Scorpio, and she said there was the most water she ever seen come out of the womb. And at that moment, I knew it shifted to Cancer rising. 1 degree Cancer rising. And I was like, I got a healer! So I taught him how to do Reiki. He's a master healer. Even as a kid, he was just like, we were riding across the bus trip to Boulder. I said, we're going to go to Boulder one time. There's this mountain, and there's a dragon up there. We're going to go on an adventure and slay the dragon. And he's like, all right, cool. So he was 4.5, and we were going across on this bus trip. And there was this guy on the bus, this black guy, and he was just like all shivering. And he was cold, and you could hear his teeth chattering. He was just like freezing. Even though everywhere else was normal temperature. And so they turned the AC off, people gave him all these blankets, and Aaron got all concerned with his little Cancer rising. He's like, Dad, should I go heal him? So I taught him how to do Reiki, and center himself with the Gaia, bringing the earth energy up and the star energy down into his heart, and boom. And so he went back to that guy and took him on his shoulder and said, Mister, can I heal you? And the guy's like shivering, going, sure, little man, let's see what you got. And Aaron just opened up. He was just like Mr. Miyagi. When he just opened up, whoosh, and that force came through so strong, that guy got hot. He had to turn the AC back on because that guy got hot. And the bus driver and all these people come up to me afterwards like, who's this kid? He's like Jesus or something. So well, he's got the same rising sign, Cancer, when he was born. I knew that he was a healer, so I taught him how to heal. And I said, I'm teaching him that he's not limited by physical boundaries, that there's a whole universe beyond this one. And so taught him his gift. So anyway, appearance itself. And it's really cool because the bottom part of the chart is sort of the inward dimension of your character. It's the personal down here. So it's sort of got its personal, just like the solar system. Right? And then the up here is more like the outer, or the collective. Like this is the house of self. This is you with others over here. 7th house. So this is the house of relationships. I actually call it the house of companionships because it has less of a romantic tone. Because it could be a business partner, it could be your best friend. You know, if you read astrology books, they'll tell you that the 11th house is the house of friends. But really, the 7th house is the house of your true friends, your deep friends that know you really well. Because it's your relationships. You have a relationship with them. So don't just constrain the 7th house to romantic relationships. Think of it as companionships. I like the word kom means with, pan means bread. Those you eat bread with. Those you break bread with. Those are your companions over there. It doesn't just have to be romantic. It can be a business partnership. We're having a lunch meeting, breaking bread. So that's you with others, because that's the collective. That's you out there in the world, you know, the 7th house. So this is you, yourself. And a lot of times this is the house of the body. They call this the house of the body. Because the body will be shaped based on your rising sign. Like me, I'm Sagittarius rising. I'm like a big horse. You got these big legs, you know. It's like people that have Gemini rising will be more wiry, more angular. Aren't you Gemini rising? Yeah. So she's littler, you know, because they're Mercury people, you know. Unless she had Mercury in Sag, and then she'd be like Little Pony or something, you know. you get modifiers, you know. So the first thing that happens is, you know, you got yourself, but then the 2nd house is your resources, you know, and what you value. It's the house of values. Don't constrain it to just money. I know everybody thinks astrologers are there to tell them about love, money, and you know, the price of stocks and all this crazy stuff, but this is the house of resources, and it can translate as money, values. And there's a journey here. You know, first you appear. And the second thing is, you say, mine! You start realizing, like, that's an important stage psychologically. We realize, like, this has value and I want it, or I want to, it is separate from me too. So this is like the whole body zone, you know. So yeah, values, resources. And like the sign on the cusp, if you have Cancer on the cusp of that sign, then your resources include your imagination, your healing gifts, your family is your biggest resource in life, you know. Like me, I have Sagittarius rising, and I have Capricorn there. So my biggest resource is my discipline, my sense of like wisdom and structure and all that stuff. So it all depends on what sign's in your 2nd house as to what kind of values are. And then you can look at like me, I have Capricorn there. Then you got to go look at Saturn, because Saturn will tell you more about Capricorn. Well, I have Saturn over here in the 5th house, which is the house of creativity. The most valuable thing in my life is my creativity. I just love creativity, you know. And then 5th house is children. And look, Saturn in the 5th house. My kid Arian, he has 6 planets in the sign of Capricorn. Saturn sign. So just you can see that. I mean, when I was a kid, I was like, wow, I'm going to have Saturn-like children. And I did. I had a kid with 6 planets in Capricorn. When he was 2, he was reminding me of my own rules, you know. I was like, dang, kid, you're like a little wise man. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, you can see what you value, you know. And it's really cool. And then, of course, you have your communication gifts, your mind. This is your mental resources here. The 3rd house governs siblings, you know, your relationship with brothers and sisters. It governs short trips, moving around. You know, you start to move around more when you get in this zone. It's the Gemini house of perception, learning. It's how you learn, you know. Because you start interacting with brothers and sisters in your environment. The 3rd house governs your neighborhood. There's many different dimensions to each house. There's a spiritual dimension we could talk about. There's a mental, an emotional dimension, like the emotional relationship you have with your sister or your brother. There's a physical aspect of every house, and there's I like to call there's the archetypal. If you put that on like graft it on like a star, you have physical, emotional, mental, archetypal, and then spiritual. So when I say that the second house is the house of values, I'm thinking mental there, you know? Like, you have a sort of, you value that. It could be emotional, like, wow, I really love making a fire. You know, you value like books. Like, let's say you have like Gemini over here, or Mercury. Let's say you have Mercury in the second house. The planet Mercury ends up in your second house. You're going to value information more than the average human being. I have Mercury in the second house. I write things, you know. It's like I have so many books and CDs and this and educational because I really value Mercury, learning. So if somebody has Venus there, might value beautiful objects, you know, art, you know, more aesthetic things. I had this one lady that had Saturn on her second house. And I said, you really value history. Saturn, structure, old things, you know. And I said, you could even make money through it. Because you had a trine over here to her sun sign. She had a management gift. She's like, well, that's funny. I ran an antique store for 20 years. You know, so you don't know what these symbols mean to the person. You just say them. Have faith. And always just trust the symbol. So Stephen Forrest says, in the movie, he says, I always tell, in the special features, he goes, I always tell my students, like a bumper sticker, trust the symbols. You know? Because if you just trust the symbols and speak them, you don't have to try to know everything and try to figure out how that person's using that symbol. That's for them. You know? Your job is just to give avenue, give expression to the symbol. Because symbols are cool. They come from the word symbolos, as opposed to diabolos. That's where the word devil comes from. Symbol means to unite, to bring together. So a symbol is something that goes, unites. There's a synchronicity of meaning. Like, wow, I just thought of that person and they called. Oh, I went downtown and I was working on this book on physics and I met a physicist. It's like, in that moment, there was a synchronicity happening. And there was a symbol uniting you. The symbol was the uniting. You were like, I was doing this and that. And so science says that can't happen. Science says there has to be a force, there has to be a cause, we can't measure it, you know, and that's why science can't accept things like astrology and metaphysics, because we're working on the symbolic level, and the symbolic level says that, hey, those things do exist and those things do happen all the time, and the more you open up to them, the more your life is magical, you know, and we don't just live in a world of rocks and measurements and logic, you know, there's intuition here. And it's funny because diabolos means to break apart. You know, to divide. So when you don't know your symbols, your symbolos of your chart, then you're broken apart. And you're living life struggle. But when you have a united symbolos, you bring all your symbols together, and you realize you're a whole village in here. I always say it takes a village to live your whole chart. So you have this whole village in here. And all these planets are fighting over the power, you know. Saturn's trying to structure everybody. Your sun's trying to go, look at me, I'm the performer. The moon's trying to heal everybody. And Mars trying to fight everybody. Venus is trying to love everybody. So everybody's got an agenda. And when you can understand all your symbols and give them, you know, living expression in your life, you feel united. You feel unified inside. You feel whole. You feel enlightened. That's enlightenment right there. So when you can bring all their symbols together in a cohesive whole. That's wholeness, you know. So that's why I like that symbol, the Japanese symbol there. Wholeheartedness. Kokoda. So wholeheartedness comes from being united inside. So, you know, and these are all the areas. You need to know these areas of life, what each of these houses mean, because when you go to start interpreting charts, you're going to say, oh, this means that. Like, okay, oh, the planet Jupiter's coming into here. So it's expanding what? Oh, your relationships. A lot of people have trouble with the houses when they're doing astrology. They're like, God, I never learned the houses. I'm like, well, you forgot the most important part, the people, places, and things. You know? Because, you know, they get through the signs, and the signs are cool, and the planets are cool, but then the houses are too much work, you know? So that's why in this class I said, you know, I'm going to start with the houses. We've never done this before. So you guys are getting state-of-the-art astrological teachings. But I figured, you know, by the end, if you keep hearing about the houses, you'll be like, oh, 7th house is about relationships. So if you have a planet in there, like somebody has Mars in the 7th house in their natal chart, not transiting, like with the arrow. Whenever I draw an arrow, that means it's moving. But if they have it in natal like that, they're always having battles in their relationships. Why? Because they're always projecting Mars onto their people. Like, you want to fight me! So that they come into relationships like this, you know? And so, of course, they attract what they get, you know. And then Jupiter will come along and say, hey, guess what? You're here to grow. Jupiter will bring some growth in that area for you. So, anyway, so it's important to think of these houses as rooms inside of yourself. One astrologer, Antero Alley, he says that these houses are like states, energy states, fields of energy. And they are, they're fields. I like to call them the fields. The houses are fields of energy expression. Or life, fields of life energy, or life expression. So, you know, they have many different dimensions, like we said. Like the second house can be values, but it can also be physical. It could be actual money. Here's the money. That's a physical expression of the second house. But don't limit to that. On the spiritual level of the second house, it's about your sense of belonging, your sense of like you are valued by the universe, by the Creator. So it's like, wow, I have a sense of value just from being here, you know. I always have in my silent constant, if I ever have a slow month, I say, come on guys, you owe me a living, I'm here. You know, so second house, values. So you want me to be here, you better treat me. So, then again, I have Scorpio in my 12th house. I have a kind of an intense relationship with God. I can wrestle with him like Jacob with the angel. Most people aren't ready for that level of relationship with God. They just want the little, take care of me, please. Can I have some food? I'd be like, give me some food, damn it. Okay. Anyway, so fourth house is your foundations. Oops. I drew a skinny fourth house. Come on, fourth house is your foundations. You need a big, wide. It's like Grandma saying, we need to fatten you up. Give me some soup. All right, so the fourth house is home, roots. You call it the nadir down here. This point here is called the nadir. Just like that's called the, typo. This is supposed to say descendant. Descendant, DSC, not ascendant. This is ascending, that's setting in the west. And this is the midheaven, the MC. These are the most important houses because they're the ones where the energy happens, you know. Planets in these houses are the strongest, you know. The 4th, the 7th, and the 10th, and the 1st. Any planet in those houses just takes on more strength. Double strength. Descendant, triple strength. Because you are that planet. If you have a planet rising, if Uranus is rising, people are going to say, you're kind of weird. You're kind of bizarre. You're kind of unusual. You know, because everybody has a weird side, wherever Uranus is, you know. Like I have Uranus, this planet, Uranus, in my 10th house, in my career house. So you have a weird career as an astrologer. You can't work the regular 9-to-5 job. You have the planet of like humanitarian causes in your house of career, you know. You got to use technology and intuition and all these things. I remember when I tried to get jobs when I was in high school. You know how many jobs I walked off because I felt inequalities happening? I just said, look, you can't treat people this way. Yes, well, I'm the boss. I'm like, oh, see ya. That's how it's going to be, you know. I'm like, I'm a rebel. I'm a freedom fighter, you know. So I'll tell you how it's going to be. Anyway, so yeah, of course, people that have Uranus in, say, the 10th house or the 6th house of work, service. Remember, work is like a job you go to. It's like to pay the bills. 10th house is your true life calling. There's actually a difference. It's great when you can align your life calling with your job. That's the goal. But a lot of people are still not there yet. The 4th house is home, roots, family. I like the word hearth for this one because it has the word heart in it. You know, you got your values, you got your mind, you got your heart. You know, and then of course you got your spirit. And I've never used this word for this house because it is the house of creativity. Well, what is creativity but spirit expression? It's expressing itself through play. You know? Play. That's the 5th house. It's joy. Fun. You know? When someone has Jupiter coming through their 5th house, I'm like, whoa, a season of joy is upon you. This year's going to be fun. This is the year to have romances. This house of romance, too. See, then you got to go through the Virgo phase, 6th house of like, oh my God, you won't put the cap on a toothpaste? I can't live with that. So you analyze the hell out of them, then you can get married. You know, 7th house. If you can deal with that 6th house phase, then you can grow the next level. First there's a little romance, and there's like a little analyzing and going, ugh. And then the 7th house is like, okay, we can get married. And then, of course, the 8th house comes next, Scorpio. Death and rebirth. And then meaning. And then calling. And then community. So you got all this. It's all shaping up here. Okay? The 5th house is creativity, fun, play, romance. If I have Saturn in the 5th house, what does that mean? I'm very serious about my creativity. I like to be a loner in solitude. How much time did I spend in the basement working on my games and my worlds and my novels? Yeah. We're writing astrology books at coffee shops. She's like, who are you? And I'm like, oh yeah. And then we come back together. It's like, I like seasons of, I have a lot of 12th house planets too. 12th house people need a lot of isolation, you know? When you know that's about yourself, you can nurture it. And then when you get with people, you can really be there with them and go, wow, hey, guess what? And you're really excited. So, like most people know me as this big, jolly, happy, enthusiastic guy, and I'm just like, woo, high energy. But when I'm by myself, I'm more just really inward and like focused and like sewing these strands of 15 million imaginations together. It's like, so anyway, that's the fun house. And that's what I mean, like it's your spirit, because you got you and your values, your resources coming into the world, and you got your mind and your communication abilities, you got your neighborhood and your siblings, you got your home, mother, father, parents, roots, and then you got creativity and your spirit and joy. And then of course, the 6th house is like, yes, but you have to like clean up the messes and pay the bills. My teacher called this the house of coping. 6th house is about service. It's about skill. It's about, you know, like before things can rise into the 7th house, like planets moving around the chart, the planets do go this way. The sky goes that way, but the transits go that way. That's because it's just an illusion that the sky goes that way. When I tell people the sun doesn't set, they go, what? Or the sun doesn't rise, they go, what? The sun rises every day. It's like, no, it doesn't. The sun, if you're looking at sunrise, the sun's actually going that way, 1 degree a day. We're on the earth, and the earth is turning, so it makes it look like the sun is rising. So the sun's not even rising, which is weird, you know, to think about. But can you see that? Does everybody see that? We're on the earth, and it looks to us like the sun is coming up. But the sun's not coming up. It just looks like it's going through the sky today because we're on the earth turning. So like if we're there, we're turned like noon, we're just turned to the point where the sun's above us. But really the sun's going this way, 1 degree a day. 360 days go around. So yeah, the sun doesn't rise. It actually sets 1 degree during that day because the sun moves 1 degree per day. But yeah, so it's bizarre to think about. Coping, service, 6th house is about skills, work, health. Now this is a modern upgrade to this house, the house of health. It used to be called the house of illness. The ancients didn't have much to good say about the 6th house, the 8th house of death, and the 12th house of self-undoing. You know, these are like, and even the 2nd house had some problems. But for the most part, the 6th, the 8th, and the 12th are the most problematic houses. I, in my archetypal, beautiful expression of astrology, like to give everybody equal weight. You know, like 6th house can be mentors. You know, 6th house is about relationships that are unequal. Say it's below the relationships, like to a mentor to a student, or like a landlord to a tenant. You know, someone that's over you, because 6th house is service. You're serving them. Coping, work, health. But it goes away. It goes both ways though. The mentor is serving the student, just as the student is serving the mentor. So yeah, you saw Christina. Jupiter went into her 6th house, and it was time for expansion in her work. You know, there's other women there. 5 of them left in the last year. What they have? Saturn in there. Say time to get a new job. You know, it's like okay, everybody has different phases going on. So it's kind of cool to think of this as your personal construction below you, and this out here is just like okay, so this is yourself. This is yourself with others. Relationships and companionships come out of that. Even business partnerships. Just partnerships. Partnerships of all kinds. And then, more smart. Getting tired. We'll go orange. Match my shorts. Alright, so 8th house is the eternal mystery of life, you know? Let's just call it the house of the eternal mystery. The house of Scorpio. You know, every sign is related to a house. The first house is the house of Aries. You'll hear it called this way. The ancient Hellenistic astrologers or the Hellenistic astrologers of today don't like you to do this because the houses have their own being independent of the signs. But it's a good way to just remember them. You know, Gemini is communication, so you know the house of 3 is about mind and communication. Cancer governs home and family. So there you go. You know, Leo, creativity. There you go. It works. You know what I mean? The house of Virgo. This is the house of Libra. This is the house of Scorpio. So you're actually learning about the signs just by learning about the houses. Even I'm focused on teaching the houses first because they're persons, places, and things. So Scorpio is about the house of Scorpio. The 8th house is about change, not charge, change. I guess you could charge your credit card. That's it's the house of debt, you know. But change, rebirth. You know, everybody hates change. They say they like change, but they don't even want change from the grocery store. Keep the change. It's like change is important. You know, we need to keep track of change. You know? Actually, embrace change. You know. So if the 2nd house is your money, this is other people's money, others' values, and money and resources. So you know this is the house of inheritance because the change happens, a big change, death. And you get money or whatever, you know. So they call this. So when Jupiter is transiting through the 7th house, the ancient astrology books would say, "Oh, it's this year you're probably going to get an inheritance." That's one meaning of it. In modern astrology, we don't do that anymore. We say, "Hey, this is a season of the soul where Jupiter, the planet of growth and expansion, is bringing about inspiring change in your life." Now, whether it comes through an inheritance or it comes through lots of sex, you know, because Jupiter's the planet of opportunity, the house of other people's. So this is the house of pleasure here, you know. So this is the house of other people's pleasure with others, pleasure with others. So it's the house of sexuality. It governs, you know, the 8th house, Scorpio. It's passion. It's the house of passion, which is a strange word because it means to suffer. Everybody wants to be passionate. Like, oh, you all want to suffer? Cool. You know, like the passion of Christ, suffering. So this is your pleasure, this is pleasure with others. Like this is the things that you like, your pleasures, your personal creature comforts. This is what you like to share with others over here. See? So it's more intense over here. And then, of course, the 9th house is the house of Sagittarius. So the 9th house has to do with, remember how in a relationship you go through a rebirth and then you have meaning. So this is the house of meaning. It's the house of exploration, philosophy. I mean, Jupiter's a planet of philosophy. Jupiter governs your belief systems. If Jupiter's in Taurus, your belief systems are going to be more like, you know, earth religions, nature. You know, you have faith in nature. Whereas if Jupiter's in Sagittarius, like me, I like studying Taoism and Buddhism and Christianity and melting them all together into a new synthesis and combining it with Kabbalistic Hebrew and astrology. You know, I'm more, you know, I got this. I love philosophy. But that's because I have Jupiter, the planet of philosophy, and the sign of philosophers. But someone that has Jupiter in Taurus, they're just like, I got faith in potatoes. I know how to grow food. You know, they're slower. They just have a different philosophy range. She has Jupiter in Virgo, faith in details, in healing. You know, Virgo's the sacred servant, the healer, and so faith in humility. So they walk a more humble path. How many massages did you do yesterday? Like 5? You were busy, right?
Yeah.
Walking that humble
I
path.
started getting really high, actually.
Yeah, that's your religion. When you're working on someone, that's your connection to the divine. You know, for me, it's teaching. Because Sagittarius is about higher education. So, you know, third house is insights. You know, little pieces of mental energy, but this is the big picture. You know, this is big picture energy. These are the parts of learning. This is actually the big field of learning. You know, like.
Does it always work that way with the opposite?
Yeah, it always works that way. That's why we're building it this way, just to show you how like down here is always here. See, like over here, like let's say you're studying Japanese. Well, when you get down to like actually learning the little pieces of the language, that's a third house experience. You know, we're studying astrology. Right now we're studying houses, so we're doing a third house experience. But I'm leading towards this whole, which is more like a ninth house experience. See that? So the ninth house is also about journeys. One time I had a really powerful planet, Jupiter, come right into my 9th house. And my progressed moon was there, which happens every 28 years. It comes in there. So it came in there together. And I was like, wow, the 9th house, the ancients called it the house of long journeys to foreign countries. So I was like, wonder where I'm going. Because Jupiter was coming, the planet of travel, and the progressed moon, the moon of your soul, which only comes around every 27.3 years. And I was like, I must be going somewhere. And I got a call just before there from a society, astrological society in Vancouver, Canada, which is far away from here, you know, and in another country. They got the colorful money. You know, you always know you're in a foreign country when you get the monopoly money. And you feel like you can spend it like crazy too. It's just like paper. Like, hey, play money.
We got it now.
Huh?
We got it here now.
Oh, we do?
Purple fives.
Was it just the
Oh.
5?
Oh. I haven't seen them yet. I haven't seen a purple 5 yet. So anyway, journeys. I went on a journey, and it was great because 9th house is great libraries, universities. I was right downtown at this big 5-story Coliseum-looking library, teaching a lecture to a bunch of Canadians. It was cool, you know, and it was a very spiritual journey for me, you know, and so you can just see I was in my flow there because those transits were going by and whoosh, things were happening. When Jupiter came to my 10th house, it was like, hey, career. Now, I like to call this the house of your life calling. I don't really like the word career because career comes from the root word careen, which means you're out of control, going falling down a hill on snowshoes without your poles, hitting trees and stuff. I'm careening through life. So, and career has a lot of stress related to it, like my career. You know, it's like you're struggling. You know, but your life calling. When you get your life calling, it's more like your vocation. You know. I like that word too because it comes from vox, which means voice, like the world's calling you to perform a mission. So, whatever's on your midheaven is called the MC, the medium coeli, medium middle of the heavens in Latin. This is the IC, the imum coeli. I would say this is at the bottom of the heavens. IC means the lowest heavens. It's like what's under you. Remember, you're on the earth, standing here. Hi! When you're born. Your chart's like that. But anyway, the vocation, the life calling, and it symbolizes your reputation in the community. People that have Pluto up here people fear them in their reputation. Like I have Pluto up there. People that have Pluto up there, we're destined to change the world. Except I have it on the 9th house side. I'm here. So I'm going to use my philosophy to change the world. And so, when you have Pluto up there, and I have Uranus there too. So whatever planets are in here are going to manifest their energies in that house. See, that's why I'm an astrologer. My teacher saw that when I was 14, said, and it has an aspect to my sun and my moon. A grand air trine, master of ideas, channeled into the career as a Uranian astrologer. She thought I was going to be an astrophysicist because I was studying astrophysics too. But then I was like, I went the astrology route in the end, which made her happy. But so anyway. Because she was one of those old ladies that doesn't go to doctors and didn't trust medical science and all that. She's like, I can heal myself. And I was like, cool, you're cool. And so, anyway, Uranus up here just gave that expression. So if you have a planet in your 10th house, that planet needs to find expression in your life calling. Otherwise, you're not doing your life calling yet. You find that. And Pluto up here makes me like sort of, it's funny because the older generation, they're sort of like, a lot of them have embraced me as a teacher of astrology. Like I've spoken at some of the greatest conferences in the world. You know, when I like all these guys, these astrologers who are like in their 60s and 70s and 50s. It's like I'm right there with them, you know. But a lot of them fear me because they go, "Wow, this guy's going to take over. This guy's our positions, our power." You know, and I'm just like, get out of the way. We got a whole new philosophy coming. You know, synthesizing all their stuff. So I give them credit. I say, "Wow, I couldn't be here unless I stood on the shoulders of giants." Actually, I did an interview with Noel Till. He's a 6'8" opera singer from Oxford who is a master astrologer and 35 books, you know. And he's, you know, part of the generation that's going out, you know, because they're like in their 70s and stuff. But he's like 6'8". I felt short next to him. I used to feel tall, and I'm like, whoa. And he goes, after my interview with him I just did in Denver, he got up and he said, he didn't want to do the interview at first because he was like, well, but my friend talked him into it, and he came afterwards. He was like, that was the best interview I've had in my whole life. He shook my hand. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, you know, Kelly, you really know your stuff. Those questions were amazing. And I was just like, well, I stood on the shoulders of giants. I said, literally in this case. So, you know, but yeah, there's a lot of like, whoa, this guy's coming. He's going to change the whole field. So whatever field you're in, you're going to bring that wherever your Pluto is. 11th house is your community. So it's like once you find your calling and you get with other people that are doing it, that's your community. Like when I go to these conferences and I'm surrounded by astrologers, I'm like, hey guys, these are my people. This is your tribe, If you have Neptune in the 11th house, you're going to attract Neptune people in your tribe. The drug addicts, the mystics, the artists, they're all going to be hanging around you. Because Neptune's there, you know what I mean? The planet of dreams. So dreamers, and you're going to be really fascinated with spiritual community. That whole idea, like, wow, let's build a spiritual community. And then whatever signs on the cusp. Like I have Scorpio on the cusp of my 11th house. So I'm always attracting really scorpionic people into my life. My dog was a Scorpio growing up. I used to get on the floor with him, fight with him. He'd bite me in the head. I'd be like, man, you're a Scorpio? But he was my best friend, Scorpios are my first wife. Tracy was a Scorpio. She had like 5 planets in Scorpio. I married my friend. And then I realized, it's like, oh. One time I was driving through Key West on a bike in the rainstorm, and I looked over and I felt spiritually like she was my sister. And I was like, oh my God, I married karmically my spiritual sister. I was like, this ain't happening. Anyway, but she was part of my tribe, So this is your cosmic tribe. But it's also your goals and your visions of the future. Because when planets are coming this way, they're getting ready to cross the ascendant and start a whole new cycle. So it's like, what's coming in the future? So this is the future. Goals. That's why the 11th house governs astrology. So that kind of thing. Like Christina, she had a new moon in the 11th house this month. I said, want to come to my class? She's really protective of her day off because all that healing, She's like, I got to go home and rest, And she's like, yeah, I want to come. Like, a new moon in the 11th house. So in 6 months from now, when the sun's over here shining full moon, you're going to have all this fulfillment of this knowledge in your head. She'll be like, woohoo! I mean, she gets it in bits and pieces at home. Sometimes she listens to the door when I'm doing work. She likes to hear me go off in that visionary space. But anyway, the 12th house is the house of dreams, inspiration, spiritual vision, your relationship with God, whatever you want to call God. I call it eternal being. My symbol for God is an infinity symbol with a circle. Infinite spirit, infinite being, infinite spirit. I like symbols though, I'm more mental. Some people just want to feel it, like put a guy on a wall and do some bhakti yoga or whatever you call it, devotional yoga. So yeah, they called this the house of self-undoing, because it is the house of escapism. I mean, I'm making all these houses sound really, really good, but every house has something, a shadow side, Just like every sign has a shadow side. 12th house goes with what sign? Pisces. It's like, this is Aquarius. This is Capricorn. What's the dark side of Capricorn? Control! I'm the boss. What's the dark side of Aquarius? Rebellion! And just feeling like, just being so unpredictable and weird that you can't even fit into the tribe, You just wear a purple sock with a red sock just to shock people, Including yourself. But, you're just a freak. Anyway, Asheville has the sun in Aquarius, right? With the moon in Gemini. So I always say this is the town of the freaks. We're ahead of our time. We're in the future. But we're all the freaks. And we have moon in Gemini. So nobody can commit to nothing, Like, how many people are in this class, And so, moon in Gemini, people, there's all this curiosity, but nobody wants to go deep, It's like, okay. So sorry if I'm deep into it tonight. But.
How did you get that from the...
Oh, from the charter of the city. You go and look at the charter of the city's chart. On that day, that's the chart of the city. So even cities have charts. Nations have charts too. Like America, we have the sun in Cancer. So we think we're the mother protectors of the world. But we're the moon. We're really the smother mothers. The moon is that's the dark side. And then our moon is in Aquarius. So we have and moon governs the people of the country. So the people are very Aquarian. We're very futuristic, inventive, freedom. That's the soul of America. Soul of the freedom. And right now we have Neptune crossing it. So that's why we've been being deceived by our higher powers. But we're also feeling a spiritual revolution coming on here. So it should be cool. It's building up. This Neptune only comes around every 165 years.
Wow.
So America's about to go
That's
through.
awesome that we're going to be here in a spiritual way.
I know. The spiritual renaissance. This 2012 is like a renaissance happening again. It's a rebirth. It's the end of time as we know it, but the beginning of a whole new cycle. So all the powers that be, all the structures are in place. They're like melting away. before their eyes, and they don't even see how it's melting. Like, the internet now is in place. Like, I make most of my money, 90% of my money comes from the internet. You know, get orders online. So I don't have to report to boss, authority, whatever, you know. It's like freedom of the people. You can, the only limit's your own imagination these days, you know. So, but yeah, astrology was so suppressed by science and religion for so long. But now with the internet, boop, we've sort of popped up. And the scientists were the ones that developed the internet. They didn't realize, like, this was going to happen. They're like, oh no, we didn't mean for that. Now astrology's gotten out of the bag. Everybody's going to be learning about their chart. So yeah. What's that?
Oh, it's like they invented LSD, and then they're like, oh shit.
Yeah, people are having mystical experiences. Oh no, we want to cover up that realm, you know? So yeah, the 12th house is the spiritual house, you know? And it, you have a lot of planets in there. I always say, for each planet in the 12th house, clink, clink, clink. You need 1 hour of alone time each day for meditation with the divine. I got 3 planets in there. So I'm like, okay, 3 hours a day.
My daughter's got like 5 minutes in there.
Yeah, so she needs to really find her spiritual connection and do it for 5 hours a day. So,
It's all in Leo.
in Leo, yeah, there you go. Performer.
Does that mean she could do it through play?
Yeah. Well, in India, they asked the question, why did the Creator create the universe? And the only reason they could come up with is one. It's called Leela. Gods of child playing.
Creating by herself, like.
Yeah, Leela, play. Spiritual play is her mission. Yeah. So, anyway, so the houses are the fields of life expression. And it's like a journey. First, every cycle starts off with an initiation, a call to adventure, right? Then you got to pack your bags and get your stuff, you know, ready for the quest. And then there's the meeting the mentor phase, where you're like, finding out more information. Luke meets Gandalf. Obi-Wan says, And then there's always this point in the quest where you cross this threshold, the point of no return, it's called. And you move off into the adventure. And there's this series of challenges that change you. And then you meet allies on the path that help you. And then there's challenges to work through together. And then there's like coming into the climax, not the climax, but the big battle with the opposite. You know, because this is also the house of enemies, by the way. Open enemies.
Is the shadow side of?
That's the shadow side of relationships. The planets are out there, right? And they're radiating light. And the signs of the zodiac are not actually based on the star groups. In India they are. They use the sidereal zodiac, which is the actual star groups. And they argue that we're off, and we argue that they're off, and we all get along. So, but you know, because if you're born within the first 24 degrees of the signs, and you're actually in Indian astrology, would be the next sign before that, because they're using the star groups, but we're using the signs. And the signs in modern Western astrology are based on the flow of change each day. So if you can imagine this, like a wave, like a darker marker.
Sign and cosine.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're doing. Okay, so imagine a wave, right? Well, when the spring starts, that's Aries. The highest point of the wave, that's Cancer. Coming back down, Libra, fall. Why? Sun's falling, right? Lowest point in the cycle, Capricorn. And then Aries starts again. So in the signs in between, Taurus, Gemini, are just different phases. Leo, Virgo, Scorpio, Sag, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. So when the sun, the symbol of the sun, enters or crosses the equator on the equinox, right? At that moment, when the sun crosses that equinox equator, right? That's the first day of the year. That's the first day of the zodiac. That's 1 degree Aries. That's how we define 1 degree Aries. It's called the Aries ingress. Important term. Aries ingress. Because it's ingressing, it's moving into a new sign. When a planet moves into a new sign, it's called an ingress. It's entering into it.
So global warming and all the season changes are going to really affect that flow change.
What's that?
Like the way our seasons are kind of getting messed up, is it going to mess that up?
Well, no, this happens every year at the spring equinox. I'm just saying. Okay. And the zodiac, it comes into being every year on that day. It's like, okay, this is the zodiac for this year. 5 degrees Virgo is over there, based on where that sun was at on the sunrise of the equinox, that's 0 degrees Aries. You know, and it doesn't always happen right at sunrise. You know, mathematically it can happen at 2:30 on March 21st, whenever the sun enters that 0 degree. It's when the sun is exactly over the equator, where there's equal days, equal nights. That's what equinox means. Equinox, nox is night. So on the equinox, that first day of Aries, that's how our zodiac's defined. So our zodiac says that if you have a planet here, and a planet there, and a planet there, you know, in your chart, it just says that, hey, that planet is taking on the essence of that season of the soul. So if you have a planet in Sagittarius, it takes on more wisdom. Why? Because that's the part of the season when things are dying on the trees, leaves are drying out, and there's sage-like qualities in the air, you know? So it's almost like you're a bottle of wine, you know? You take on the vintage of the season you're born in, you know? It's like that. That's what I say when you're coming to the solar system. You're squeezed into form, you know? And so that's the tropical zodiac. In their version of Aries, they take the stars of Aries and say that's Aries. You know? If a planet's in that star group, it's in Aries. And so they're using this. That's called the sidereal zodiac. Ours is called the tropical zodiac. Why? Because remember, these are the tropics of Cancer and the tropic of Capricorn on the map. When the sun hits the Tropic of Cancer, that's summertime in the northern hemisphere. And then down here, when it hits the Tropic of Capricorn, that's wintertime in the northern hemisphere. So even though it's seasonally, it's reversed on the bottom of the globe as it is the top. This seasonal matrix, this seasonal flow is a pattern that is not dependent on the physical expression. It comes from a higher order. You know, the archetypes come from that other order I was talking about below, the spiritual order that governs the universe. So even though it manifests, it's cool how it manifests in 2 ways on one planet. You know, you got the yin and the yang of the same cycle going on. So, but yeah, so and in India they'll argue that no, if a planet's in this sign, these constellations of Aries, you know, you say you're a Taurus, because theirs is 24 degrees off. You know, so here's the big thing. Their signs don't mean the same things as our signs. They even have different names. If you're studying Vedic astrology, you shouldn't call Aries Aries, because the constellation of Aries, they have a term for it. You know, that you should call it that term, because that's what they're talking about. So don't confuse the 2 zodiacs. If you go study Vedic astrology, don't get all like, people go study yoga and then they fall in love with Vedic astrology and then they get all superior on us and say, oh, we're better than you because we study Vedic astrology. We use the actual star groups. And I argue to them, oh yeah, is your sign of Virgo 46 degrees long instead of 30 degrees? They're like, no, each sign's 30 degrees. I was like, yeah, but the constellation of Virgo is 46 degrees. Constellation of Aries is only 15 degrees. You should have varying degrees of your constellation if you're really using the constellations. So there's arguments both ways, you know.
So are the meanings the same?
No, there is overlap. There is overlap, about 70% overlap. But you know, in general, they interpret it a whole different way. Their system is beautiful. I mean, their aspects are more like, they don't even have aspects. They call them planetary yogas. If this planet's in that sign, and that planet's in that sign, and that one has that, then that's the yoga of this, you know. If a planet's in its own sign, rising, it's called, you know, Raja Purushana, which means, you know, it's the mark of a great one. So you look and you see, like in the Dalai Lama's chart, he's got 2 Raja Purushanas. So that's why when they found the Dalai Lama, they're like, he's the one! You know, he got 2 of them, you know. I mean, if you look at our culture, who has 2 Raja Purushanas? The actor, who's the actor that plays James Bond?
Sean Connery.
Sean Connery has 2 Raja Purushanas. He's got the mark of the great one. And when you see him on stage, you're just like, wow, that guy can act, you know what I mean? He's got that charisma coming. Even young people will be like, dang, what does that guy got? You know? So anyway, you can just feel that in people, you know? I have a Raja Purusana. I have Jupiter in its own sign, rising, you know? And it's conjunct Mars, the warrior athlete. I was like the football player. You should see quarterbacks. They're afraid of me. I was like, I'm coming. The moon's in Gemini, and I can fly, you know? I'm sacking you today. So, you know, but I chose the spiritual path instead of the sports path. But I could have gone the sports path. Anyway, you have all this potential in your chart. And so that's what I mean by this, is the zodiac, is there's differences. But like whatever your planets fall in this tropical zodiac, you take on the essences of those archetypal seasons, like a bottle of wine, whoosh, squeeze into you. And so, that's that. But my point about the houses is that these are fields of life experience And when a planet is in a house, it's like having an occupant in a room, in you. So if you have a lot of planets in the second house, there's something going on with money, resources, values in your life. You know what I mean? If you've got a lot of planets in the fifth house, you know, you're going to be really motivated by the experience of creativity. I had one person had Jupiter in there, and she had 5 children. I was like, wow, that's a lot of children. Jupiter brought its expansive vibe out there, you know. I've seen other people with Jupiter in the fifth house that didn't have a lot of children, though. Instead, they would take journeys to foreign lands to do, like, art, creativity. I was like, oh, you used it that way. So he's like, it's not about producing. Like, this is what it is. You just trust the symbols and speak the symbols the way I'm going to teach you. And it will apply to that person perfectly, you know. I've never done a chart where it didn't match. Actually, one time I did a chart where the person was like, this doesn't sound like me. Like 15 minutes into the reading, she was like, hold on, stop everything. She's like, this isn't, I'm not connecting with this at all. And I was like, really? I was surprised. You know, I was like, I was just reading the symbols. And I was like, wonder what's wrong. And she looked at the chart and said,
My birthday was wrong.
she said, I was born in the PM, not the AM. I was like, oh, the whole chart's 12 hours off. Let's turn it over. So I recalculated, redrew it. 30 minutes later we started, and boom, it was perfectly on. Exact her character. So it's just like that 12 hours made a difference because it put all the planets in different houses, you know, put all the different rising signs, different everything, you know. So the quality or the accuracy of the chart depends on the quality of that birth time. So you want to get it within, you know, at least 15 minutes, because this degree of the ascendant, 1 degree, changes every 4 minutes. You know? So if you're off by 16 minutes, let's say, you could be off by 4 degrees, which isn't much, you know? 4 degrees is like turning the chart from like, you know, from like there to like there. You know? Time goes, you know, it takes 2 hours. But in Christina's case, 1 degree is a lot. Or because she's 1 degree Leo. So if I'm off by 4 minutes, she could be Cancer rising, and I might be wrong. You know, so you want to get that. So you just ask them: Is this your birth time birth, or is this your mother's memory? Because you want to have a birth time birth accuracy. That's called, in astrology we call that an AA. You know, Lois Rod was this great astrologer who created this database. It's called Astro Database. It's this growing database. You can go to astrodatabank.com of like birth data, accurate birth data, and it has cool little descriptions of their life and all based on their transits and everything. So it's a growing database. It's really cool. And AA is the symbol or the record for like birth certificate data. And then like there's A and B and C and D. You know, there's all these like levels of dirty data, we call it.
What's the best place that you would suggest to pull up our charts? Because it would be fun to like have it in front of us, like.
Totally. Well, I was going to get your data and print them out so we would have them next time.
Okay.
Yeah, because I could do it right there. I could project your chart right here on there. So we'll be. I'm going to get everybody's data and then print those out. But yeah, just know that the degree of the ascendant change is 1 degree every 4 minutes. So you know the sky's turning, so the Earth's turning, the sky's there, and actually the ancients called the universe. When they looked up and called it the universe, universe. Verse means to turn in Latin. People like to say, oh, verse, the one verse, one song, one vibration, but it actually means to turn. So when the ancients looked up, they said, it's the turning of the one, the turning of God. So they're like, cool. So when a planet is in a house, it's in a field of life experience. And let me show you how that relates to interpretation now. This is the cool part. Okay, so in every interpretation, can we get the solar system back?
Sure.
Thanks. Solar system. Okay, you have a planet. This is the basic formula for interpreting a chart. A planet in a sign in a house. Right? So you have an action being done in a style of action. It's in Aries, it's going to be a little more aggressive. It's in Taurus, it's going to be a little more deliberate, slow, builder. And then action in a style in a field of life, an energy field. Field of experience. So let's try one. Let's try. Okay, name a planet. Mars. There you go. Okay, so Mars. And what sign? Name a sign.
Pisces.
It's in Pisces. Ugh. I call that the Gandhi complex because it's
That's
like,
mine. Those are Mars.
oh yeah, Gandhi complex because it's like, you know, Mars is like rah, but Pisces is like Piglet on Winnie the Pooh, like, oh, I'm all compassionate. And it's like spiritual battle. There's a spiritual battle here. You know? Okay, you have a lot of compassion. And then name a house. 1 through 12. 12. 12th house is the house of spiritual vision. So, okay, Mars, you could say, okay, there's a sheet. We want to put up symbols, astrology symbols. Is it, let's see. Astro symbols, that one. You'll see this sheet here. That one. It has the basic meaning. Can you blow it up a little bit? 75 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to lose 12,000. That's cool. I'm just going to put all this on here. So we got Mars. So we got Mars in Pisces in the 12th house. All right. And graphically, that would mean that the planet Mars, when you look at the chart, where's Mars? Mars is in this sign, Pisces, in the 12th house. So they probably have Aries rising or Pisces rising. Okay? So when you're looking at that, so when you're trying to interpret it, okay, first thing you do is you bring in the SPY statement. And the SPY statement is the combination of just the basic meanings of the planet sign house. And when I mean that, I say, you can just say with Mars, the urge to express desire. And just keep it that simple. Or the urge to act. You can say both. You can say the urge to express, to act, express desire, and focus the will, if you want to get all crazy on it. Is being expressed through the archetype of. Give you a chance to write that, yeah. What do you have it on your sheet? The dreamer, the poet, musician, the empath, the visionary, the mystic, the oracle. These are expressions of Pisces. So that's cool. And then you say, in the life experience field of, and then we need to scroll down to the 12th house. Try to keep Mars up here. If you can, like bring this down.
Mm-hmm. And they would not be good in bed. Well, they wouldn't, because they'd be all like want to meditate.
No, they could meditate while having sex, you know, because Mars is desire, and 12th house is spiritual connection. I mean, people that have Mars and desire, they can just have sex with God, you know, they don't even need a human. It's like, whoa.
I think I dated him.
they could get impregnated by the divine, like Mary. All right. So yeah. Anyway, so the urge to act is being expressed in the archetype of the dreamer in the field of secrets. See how I'm putting that together? The urge to express desire is, or it sounds weird. The urge to express desire is being expressed through the archetype of the poet-musician in the field of dreams. You know. The urge to focus your will is expressed in the sign of the visionary, in the house of isolation. You know, see how I mean? Just basic, and you don't know this applies to the person, but they feel it. They will feel it. You know, they will feel. They will get something out of it when they listen to the CD over and over. They, oh wow, he's saying my masculine essence, my warrior energy, is working according to the spiritual principle of unity through divine love. In the field of escapism. It's like, wow, escapism burns in this person. You feel Mars? And there's that escapism energy of the 12th. It's like, I need to get the hell out of here. I need to transcend this world. Now you can do that through drugs or alcohol or sleep or TV. Or you can do it through creative imagination, poetry, visionary art. So you got a double Pisces here. Ding, ding, you know, because you got Pisces and the 12th house. So you got a double symbol of moving beyond this world into an archetypal realm. The realm of dreams. And, you know, it's pretty powerful when Mars is in there.
I think mine's in the 4th house.
Yeah, yours in the 4th house. Okay, yeah, you should be a whole different house. You should be in the fourth house of the hearth, the home, the family, the roots. You should be a warrior in the home, protecting those you love. You know? So there'd be a lot of, turbulence in the home life, because Mars is like throwing out some fire, you know? Mars isn't bad.
Spiritual aspect.
Yeah. It's like spiritual warrior trying to come through the home, huh? So okay, let's do another one. So you can see how important the houses are. People say, I don't know about the houses. But the house is where it comes out into life, you know? If you don't know the houses, if you don't know the basic meanings of the 12 houses, then you don't know how to, like, say what it means. You know? So, alright, let's do another one. Pick a planet.
What is Ceres?
Mercury.
Mercury. Let's do Mercury. We'll get to Ceres. Ceres is the new dwarf planet out there between Mars and Jupiter. There was an asteroid field there. Remember the asteroid?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was once a big planet there, and it got destroyed ancient times. And the biggest chunk of that planet left is called Ceres. Ceres. And Ceres is her name. Her Greek name is Demeter. So it's the Earth Mother. You know? She governs fertility, agriculture cycles, abundance, food disorders, money, resources. Very important asteroid. And she just got demoted. When Pluto got demoted by the scientists to a dwarf planet, they actually took Ceres and elevated her to a dwarf planet. So Pluto and Ceres are on the same level now, which is really cool because mythically, Pluto is the guy that stole her daughter, raped her, Persephone, took her in the underworld, and she became the queen of the underworld. And Ceres got pissed off and canceled nature, and winter came. So the whole myth of Ceres and Pluto is so dynamic in the chart that I've integrated into my whole teaching. I've been working with Ceres since 1994. I read about her in this book here, you know. I already knew how important she was way back then because my studies with like astrologers like Demetra George, who wrote Asteroid Goddesses, and I was working with Ceres way back then. She works with all 4 asteroids: Ceres, Vesta, Juno, and Pallas Athena. I wanted to have 12 forces in my chart to go with 12 signs and 12 houses. So I chose Ceres, and then Chiron is important now too. Chiron was found in 1977, and it's that archetype of the mentor. It's like that Obi-Wan energy, you know, the mentor. So I really need these archetypes. They're coming back strong. The feminine, the goddess, and then the mentor archetype are really coming back strong. And they're related to the signs of Taurus and Virgo. So Virgo's getting an upgrade. Virgo's not just a nitpicky secretary anymore. Virgo's like the Zen master, you know.
So where does the new planet fit into this? The one past Pluto?
Eris?
Yes.
Yeah, Eris is a whole new, it comes from the Oort cloud outside the solar system, and astrologers are talking about that left and right too. And actually I call Eris, and astrologers wanted to name Eris, and even scientists wanted to name Eris, astronomers, but they couldn't because they already named another planet, Persephone. She's the queen of the underworld, out beyond Pluto. And she's, and her Eris guys, Eris is the goddess who didn't get invited to the party, and so she came and she threw a golden apple in the middle of the party, and all the goddesses fought over it to see who was the most beautiful, and she's the goddess of discord. So Eris is stronger. When you discover a new planet, you look on the planet and see what's happening, and it's like it matches Eris, discord, Persephone. The dark goddess is rising at the end of this age of Pisces, the age of illusion. See, the cool thing is when you think about it, the tropical zodiac, you know, when the sun enters Aries, right here, at the beginning of the year, that's the Aries point. Well, that point moves every year. 1 degree every 72 years, so it's real slow. But 1 degree every 72 years translates to 30 degrees in 2,160 years. So every 2,000 years about, we go through an age. That's where we get the timing of the ages. Right now, the Aries ingress, you know, when Jesus came, the Aries ingress had come back to Aries and Pisces. So it was back to the beginning. That's why they call Jesus the high priest of the order of the Melchizedek. The order of the Melchizedek are these enlightened masters that come at the turning points of the ages and the midpoints to sort of bring the teaching of that archetype into reality. Like when Abraham came, started the Hebrews, he was the Melchizedek of the age of Aries. Actually, there was a Melchizedek on the planet then, and he got his teaching from that. But he was like the guy who initiated the age of Aries. Halfway through was Moses. So back then, the images of God were warrior God, Jehovah, destroy your enemies. And then Jesus came along, Pisces said, love your enemies. Come on, let me wash your feet. Pisces covers the feet, you know. Pisces is about spiritual love through Virgo, service to others, you know. So this whole new age came, this whole new teaching came The dark side of Pisces is the dark side of what we've seen with religion being institutionalized. And the institutionalization and drugs and escapism. I mean, the positive side, we got movies now. But the whole Pisces thing is, I mean, you go watch your TV at night and you're watching an illusion and they're trying to sell you a drug through an illusion. It's like, oh my God, are we so thick in the age of Pisces or what? So people are talking about the Aquarian Eight's coming, but they ain't coming yet, because the Aries ingress is still, it's like at 25 degrees Pisces. So we still got, it ain't until like 2,376 till it actually hits one of the stars of Aquarius and we get the big, but actually in 2012 and actually 2020, Jupiter and Saturn line up in Aquarius, ding, which is the major milestone moving toward it. It's like the glass is filling up. It's only like half, it's like a little past half full, but.
So you know that little song in the 60s, and we still have like 300 more years?
Well, no, we're it's the Aquarian vibration, this is an interface period. The Aquarian vibration started in 1781, right when Uranus was discovered. And the world started becoming more technological, scientific, Uranian, more Aquarian. And you can see that we're blending these two ages right now. I mean, with all the technological advances, and electricity and light and all this, and then all this illusion and escapism and religion and science and religion are duking it out, It's like we're right in the middle of this stuff, So just imagine when a new age comes, it's like in 1781 the glass started getting full of water, And it takes about 300 to 500 years to go through an age or interface period. So we're well into the mix. So we're in the Aquarian age, but we're still in the Pisces age too, But we're not fully into just the Aquarian age. So. Well, and that's going to have a shadow side too. I mean, if you think back to the Garden of Eden, Virgo, this will be the seventh age. The seventh age. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they do call this the age of peace. And because 7 is like the spiritual number, God's favorite number, and all that. And you go back and you see like back in the Leo age, this was the Garden of Eden. Before that, we had a whole other chapter with angels and all this other crazy stuff. But like, we won't even go into that. But Garden of Virgo, and then came into Leo. Back then was like the sun worshippers were on the planet. People were like, wow, the sun is our source of light. These primitives, they weren't too primitive. They built the pyramids. They built the Sphinx. The Sphinx with the lion, the Sphinx thing was like, that was the symbol way back there. And scientists have dated it back 12,000 years, right back here. It takes 26,000 years to go around. So they say the Sphinx is about 13,000 years old. So they built it here. And then when the flood came, that was the beginning of the age of Cancer. The big flood, the water, and the Epic of Gilgamesh, Noah, all that whole story came. And people running around like hermit crabs, wanderers, looking for food. And then suddenly, boom, by the time Gemini came along, that was the Egypt, the two kingdoms, Lower and Upper Egypt, the two, and the invention of language, commerce and trade, boats sailing all around, there's a lot of commerce going on. And then, of course, the age of Taurus came, and that was the monument builders, These guys got all crazy building pyramids and everything. And then, so the Taurus was the age of the builder. You had these giant monuments everywhere. And then suddenly Aries came, the warrior. And then, back in this age, Taurus is the goddess. Taurus is the feminine. So the goddess was worshipped. If you go to Turkey, one of their major mountain ranges, it's called the Taurus Mountains. And there's the city of Tarsus. And all the archaeological discoveries around this time from, the 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, so 4,000, 6,000 years ago, there's these little things, little clay goddess statues with little bellies. That was the main symbol. That was like people with crosses walking around, Jesus people. They had little goddesses with bellies, That was that age. And then when the Aries age came, the sort of like the matriarch slew the patriarch, or the patriarch took over the matriarch. And now it's trying to come for a rebalancing and actually it's not just the start of one new age when it hits this point. It's the start of 12 new ages. It's the new cycle. So when Jesus comes, that's when the big wisdom comes down. It's like, all right, I am the Alpha and the Omega. I am the beginning and the end. I'm here to bring down this wisdom. I know you don't understand, but I need to wash your feet, to bring in water on your damn feet, to bring in the intellectual understanding. And so, in Aquarius, they're going to be moving up to the ankles. Like, let me stroke your ankles, okay? A little ankle massage. Aquarius is the electromagnetic energy field. See, the Aries is the head, Taurus is the neck, Gemini is the hands and the neural system, Cancer is the stomach and the breast, and Leo's the heart and the spine, and then of course Virgo's the intestines, and Libra's the kidneys balancing the fluids, and Scorpio's the sexual organs, and Sagittarius is the thighs and the liver, and Capricorn is the knees and the skin and the teeth and the bones and all the hard structures, and then Sagittarius is also muscle too. And then you got your Aquarius is the ankles and the shins, but it's also the electromagnetic energy field around you. And then Pisces is the feet, the lowest, but it's also the spiritual energy field around you that pervades it all. It's like crown chakra, you know. So you can just wrap that right through the body and feel it.
What age was like Lemuria? Like
That was going on way back here. If you go back to this time back here, 26,000 years ago, that was Atlantis
that was
and Lemuria.
Aquarius before.
Yeah, that was that. And they screwed up. They went way technological, created that Tuwali crystal, and whole island went. So now we're coming back going, we're not here to repeat that karma. We got to get it right this time. So hopefully we'll go. Otherwise, we'll go back to being cavemen for a while. So Mercury, what's going on Mercury? Pick a sign, any sign.
Scorpio.
Ooh, Scorpio. Mind of the alchemist. What else?
7.
7? Okay.
Wait, I'm like, wait, what happened?
Let's do 7.
Is your Mercury in Scorpio?
Yeah, in the 6th.
Okay.
Okay, so yours in the 6th. Alright, so we'll do 6 and 7. We'll start with 6. Let's have a living person here, for example. Okay, so Mercury, the way you interpret, like bring this down a little bit.
Alright.
Just the Mercury.
Okay.
Alright, so Mercury. Look at that line right there.
Whoa.
The urge to communicate is being expressed in the archetype of the investigator, the investor, you know, putting money into something. But let's go deeper. The researcher, searching again for what we've lost. Research. The alchemist, transforming the lead of the lower self into the gold of the higher self. The shaman, you know, who's able to take on the pain of the tribe. So you're mentally able to take on the pain of the tribe. And you're like walking around going like, why is my mind all screwed up? Because you just walk down the road and you feel everybody else's craziness. And you're like, you're supposed to go home and learn how to light a candle and get in the bath and go and let it all go, you know? Because you're the shaman. Mentally, you're the shaman because you have a deep mind. And it's a water sign. So your Mercury learns through absorption, right? Water is like feeling it. You can't just learn through knowing it. You have to feel it. You know what I mean? And so when I get to some of the diagrams I'm going to show you, you're going to be able to, I'm going to ask you to feel them instead of just know them. You're going to go, whoa, you're going to feel them. It's really cool. So you got Scorpio is about empowerment through surrender. That's the spiritual lesson. These are all the spiritual lessons of the sign. Just that. If you could just take these 12 lessons and learn them all, you'd be an enlightened being. Empowerment through surrender. Whenever someone's having a powerful Pluto transit, or you with your Mercury, you mentally need to do this. I always tell them the proverb or the line by Zen Master Suzuki, who says, "We don't need to learn how to let things go. We just need to recognize when they've already gone." So mentally, you need to do that. You know, we don't need to learn how to let things go. We just need to recognize when they're already gone. So it's in your 6th house. So the urge to communicate and acquire knowledge and express skill is being expressed in the archetype of the right here, the investigator, the researcher, the shaman, in the field of service and health, in the field of employment. So it says you need to use your brain power in your employment, like being a writer or a mailman or a communicator or whatever. Use your mental energy or use your hands. Mercury governs the hands. Mercury governs the expression of skill, whether it's intellect or it's with humor or mind or even with the hands. Because Mercury governs all that, the hands and arms. So let's say, okay, one way to use this, Mercury and Scorpio in the 6th is communicating intense information about change, Scorpio, in your work. So that would be a good job for you. Saying what people don't want to hear, but what they really need to hear. That could be your daily duties. The 6th house is your routine. So you should wake up and go start telling people what they don't need to hear, or what they really need to hear.
Plain communicator.
Yeah. So, but with humility in it, because the 6th house is very Virgo. It's very humble. Look at this, the house of employment, skills, duties, training, diet, health, routines, and mentoring. So so you'd be a good mentor of the shamanic arts.
I always say, where's my village? I'm the shaman.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. I mean, you got the sun in Scorpio too. Did you say? Yeah, you got a double focus there. Look at that. Yeah. So, the sun. Mercury has to be in the same sign as the sun, or the sign before or after. That's because from the Earth, right? When we look, Mercury goes around the sun like this. So it can't go very far. It has to be in the same sign, the sign before and the sign after, depending on where it's in its orbit. Venus has to be in the same sign, the sign after, Or the sign after that, if the sign, Venus can go that far, because Venus is the next planet, So Venus and Mercury, everybody has an interesting thing. You could be in Aquarius with Mercury in Aquarius and Venus in Aquarius, then you're a true Aquarian. Or you could be in a Venus, you could be a, let's just do Aquarius as an example, but apply this to all signs. So you got Mercury in Aquarius and Venus in Aquarius. You're really freaky, right? Even your love nature's in the sign of the rebel. But at the same time, you could have, what's the sign before Aquarius? Pisces, right? So you could have Mercury in Pisces, Venus in Pisces. What's the sign before Pisces? Oh, sorry. The sign before Aquarius, after Aquarius, is Pisces. The sign before is Capricorn. And what's the sign before that? Sagittarius. And then the sign after Pisces, of course, is Aries. So you got a lot of different kind of Aquarians here, because this is your mind, this is your heart, So it's like, well, the moon's your heart, but Venus is your aesthetic sensibility. Venus shows how you want to be loved, and what your sensual tastes are, like how you dress. Like me, look at me, I dress like a Sagittarius because I have Venus and Sagittarius. If I don't have pockets on the clothes, I don't even want them, So I got to have some Indiana Jones cargo pants or something, because we like loose-fitting athletic clothes, because my Venus is in Sag. Now, when I meet someone Venus in Capricorn, they're like, you don't know how to dress. You're wearing a red shirt with yellow shirt. It's like, yeah, I'm like a big kid, So I got Venus in Sag. So, see, I'm an Aquarius, but my Mercury's in Capricorn. So I have the mind of the wise old man, but my Venus is in Sag. So I'm like a different kind of Aquarius. So there's other kinds of Aquarians. I've met Aquariuses with Mercury and Pisces, and their minds are way less organized than mine. They're more mystics, They feel their knowledge. And then I've seen Aquarians with Venus and Aries. And when they get in love, it's like a battle. Especially a woman, because they're Venus, they're feminines in the sign of Aries. You're either lesbian or they're usually, just...
Domination.
Yeah, just real domineering. And so, but there's many different expressions of each sign based on your Mercury-Venus flow. And if Mercury is, say, on this side of the sun, like let's say the sun's in a chart, right? If you see Mercury here, that means Mercury is coming up, rising before the sun. That's called, let me see this little thing. That's called, see this little sheet here? It says Mercury, Prometheus, Epimetheus, Venus, Lightbearer, Hesperus. If Mercury is on this side of the sun coming up before, that's Mercury, Prometheus. That means Mercury is ahead of the sun, so it's Prometheus is about foresight. Mercury over here is Mercury, Epimetheus. That's Mercury behind the sun. So those people think more conservatively than these people. People with Mercury ahead of the sun, like me, we're more progressive minded. We're more like, the future. It doesn't mean that these guys are bad. It just means the conservative thinkers are more like people that will go, okay, let's study the field of knowledge that's out there and then build upon it, nice and slow and in a nice stage. People like me were like, I don't care what they wrote. I'm going to go create my own field, So people that have Mercury ahead of the sun are more like that. Venus people ahead of the sun is called Venus. The actual word is Venus Lucifer. I just put, but Lucifer means the bearer of light, because when Venus is ahead of the sun, she's the morning star, the bearer of light. She bears the sun up.
Is the head going back towards the first house?
No, ahead means ahead is like ahead of the sun, or behind the sun. So because when the sun comes up, it's what's in front of it. What's back here? Yeah, going back to it. But if it's over here, I guess it could say going back toward the first house. Whatever's in front of the sun, going back around.
Because it's going counterclockwise. So.
Well, yeah, when the sun rises, what's going to come up before it? Like when Christina was born that day, Chiron rose, and then Sirius rose, and then Venus rose.
Okay.
So her Venus is ahead of her sun. She's got Venus light bearer, but her Mercury is behind the sun. Her Mercury is Epimetheus. So, like the people with Mercury Epimetheus are more apt to, like, say, finish college. Because they're like, okay, we got to go find out what the people say the structures are. And like people with me with Mercury, I had a 4.0 my junior year in college in astrophysics, chemistry, science, differential equations. And I was like, I'm so bored here. These guys don't have anything to teach me, so I dropped out. And then I wrote my own book, because they didn't want to teach me astrology. So I said, okay, then I'll just go learn it myself. And so Mercury, Prometheus have a little more like that. And then Venus, ahead of the sun, they're more adventurous in love. They're more progressive in their love taste. They'll try anything once. And then Venus, Hesperus, these people are more conservative in their love taste. They're the people that get together at 20 and stay together their whole life, or whatever. Usually after the midlife crisis at 40, when Uranus, the planet of radical changes, opposes itself, Uranus, halfway around the chart, that happens between the ages of 39 and 42, depending on what part of Uranus' cycle you're in. But basically, it's like at 40, your life goes through revolution. And the Venus Hesperus people start acting more like the Venus light bearer people. And the Venus light bearer people like me, we finally settle down. It's crazy how it works. But yeah, so there's different expressions there. So then you have to look at your Mercury and that. So that's why there's a little checkbox there for Venus, Mercury. So we'll get to that. But there is a lot in astrology, but it's just little stuff, But the core teaching is that everything you're going to say is a planet, in a sign, in a house. And then, of course, it gets modified by aspects. But this planet in that side of that house is square to that planet in that side of that house. And then you're talking. You're like, whoa, we got a configuration in this person. And when you describe it to them, they're like, so that explains all these years. They totally have this language to describe all these beautiful and conflicts. They're beautiful because once you iron them out, they're not conflicts anymore. They're strengths. Like in my chart, I have the Sun square to Saturn. In other words, my Sun is in the second house, and my Saturn is in the fifth, and they're perfectly square to each other, making a 90-degree angle, which creates a lot of conflict with authority figures, especially father, because this is the authority, and that's father. So there's a square there. So all my life, me and my dad used to duke it out, and not physically, but I just had a problem with authority. Even in football, I was always the rebel. Aquarius here to add to the craziness against the authority until I became my own authority. And now I don't have to rebel against anything because I'm just like centered in that authority. So it's like you have to make peace with Saturn. And usually with Saturn, it takes time. Like who had the Saturn on their node? You?
Saturn.
Yeah. Saturn gets easier as you get older. Yes, so it's in Virgo, so you're coming up in your Saturn return?
Yeah, I'm 29.
Yeah. Saturn return, because Saturn's in Virgo now. So since last September when Saturn entered Virgo, she's entered her Saturn return when the planet Saturn conjuncts Saturn. Happens at 29 and a half, and again at 58. And there's 3 cycles of Saturn, 30-year cycles about. First cycle is about just dreaming your life and going and making mistakes and learning through your experience, right? And then when you get to the Saturn return, it's about making a stand for what you want to be, It's making a commitment and a stand in your community that this is who I am, this is what I'm going to be. And it's like there's a serious difference between people over 30 and people under. Because these people have like this sort of Saturn focus going on. These people are still running around exploring. So it's like this is the dreaming time. This is the time to make the dream real. And accepting that the dream in its manifest form is a little bit smaller than you thought. The guy who wanted to be the rock star is back there working the lights. But he's still...
North Node and Virgo coming from Pisces, there's a lot of dreaming that's going on.
Yeah, because you have the South Node in Pisces, which is like, you're going toward that North Node in Virgo. And you have Saturn in Virgo. And then Saturn's coming in Virgo now. So you got this crazy situation. But the South Node in Pisces is like someone whose reincarnational sort of like common denominator was one of being the visionary artist, the dreamer, the angel. Pisces, it's like your soul was out for a long time. The reincarnation police came to get you. You were right behind a cloud. But they finally got you. And then they shoved you in the body and said, deal with it, We want you to learn about village consciousness, cleaning up messes, paying bills, coping with life. And then they said, well, while you're there, show them some of this beauty that you've seen in heaven, Bring heaven on earth. Yeah, and so it's tough for the angels when they get shoved in bodies. But since you're here, you got to deal with it. You might as well. And now Saturn's coming to mature your expression of this Virgo. Remember, Jesus came to teach what? Universal love through sacred service, divine imagination through craftsmanship. So it's like you have to take the divine imagination and find a service where you can craft it. Use that imagination to craft something that can serve others. And Saturn's coming to mature that whole process during this 2-year period.
2 years.
Yeah. Probably why here. Yeah. Because by learning astrology, like I said, you can use this in any way. I use it in my writing to make up novels, characters, So there's you'll find your way.
I was just saying to her before we came here, I was like, why don't you use it in schools to help teachers understand their kids?
There you go.
Their students.
Cool.
I mean, yeah, it's amazing when you have students like that, or just kids, you know, checking out your kids' chart, go, oh wow, and watching their transits, you know. Like I saw Uranus crossing my kid's Saturn. That only happens once every 84 years. Rebellion against authority. I was like, he was like, Dad, I really want to live at my mom's because the neighborhood down there is better and there's a lot of kids and it's not out in the woods. And I was like, go ahead, go to your mom's. I'm not fighting. Go ahead. And then I get the call 6 months later. He won't listen. We're going to send him back. And I'm like, I said, do you want to go there with the born-again Christians down in the valley, or do you want to like hang out with Super Dad and talk astrology and metaphysics and play role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons? It's like, go hang out with the Christians. Go ahead. Because I saw that rebellious face coming, and he's just like, you know.
That wasn't nice.
But he comes back, you know. He comes back. I say, okay, you're back for the summer. Let's hook you up to the Xbox, get your IV in you, you know. Give you some nice smoothies and vegetarian, vegan, tofu food. And, you know, and he's just like, he's in heaven right now. But it makes him appreciate this because he understands true freedom now. Because he's like, oh, wow, this is freedom. You know, this is doing what you want to do. And being inspired by the divine, but not doing it because you were told to do it, or you're going to hell, you know, all that stuff, yeah. So yeah, so the second Saturn cycles out, and then of course Saturn returns to Saturn at 58, and those guys are only happy if it's 95. Those guys are only happy if the gifts that they have developed over 30 years are being received by the community. That's what Stephen Forrest says in my movie. Stephen Forrest, straight up, he says, the elders that are happy are the ones whose gifts are being received. Because I'm finding a wonderful spaciousness in this. He's 58 in this time. He's like one of the greatest astrologers on the planet. He's Yoda, you know. And he's like, now he goes, I just want to give it all away, you know, and give back. And so that's what happens over here. So we're going to be studying these cycles in class number 7, like detail. But for the most part, that's class number 1. Study the houses.
Is he still in Chapel Hill, Stephen Forrest?
Yeah, he's down in Chapel Hill, but he's building a house out in California in the high desert because his wife has a lung thing and she can breathe better out there, so they're going to make this big shift and move out to California. Plus he's got all these his mentoring programs really kicking out there, and so he wants to, like, you know, nurture that. It just works for him out there. His astrocartography is great. Astrocartography is the art of putting your chart around the planet on a map of the Earth and then seeing where the lines run, and wherever those lines run, that's where you have like if Jupiter runs through, you know, the East Coast. The East Coast is the Jupiter province for you, you know. Like when I was born. Yeah. Hey, can you put the one up with the solar system? I just want to draw a quick, just a quick representation of this. Like, okay, like here's America, right? Best America I can do right now. So I was born in Mississippi, Jackson, Mississippi, in the deep South, right? And this place was crazy. I almost died there. I kept running into snakes in the woods and getting bitten by spiders and just all this stuff. Well, it turns out right above me, you know, remember I had Pluto in midheaven? Pluto was right over me there. And so whenever I'm there, even I go there, I feel so oppressive there in the south. I feel like I'm going to die within a week of getting there. I can't even visit for long. Yeah, because Pluto's right over me there. Pluto's right over me. But my parents moved me to Boulder, Colorado when I was, you know, first grade. And in Boulder, I have an ascending line coming through here. 2 ascending lines, actually 3 ascending lines. I have my Jupiter, Neptune, Mars, which normally from my birthplace are in my 12th house. But when I go to Boulder, if I would have been born in Boulder, they would have been right there on my rising sign. So by going to Boulder, I activated my spiritual teacher, Mars, athlete, everything energy, just supercharged. So there I just became, like, instantly came alive. Well, met a girl in college, traveled the world, ended up down in her hometown, Key West, Florida. Guess what planet I have going right through there on my midheaven? Uranus, the astrologer, became an astrologer. Right on my career path, the MC. Well, we can. You can go online and figure it out. Go to astro.com, look up, see if they have astrocartography. I have a program called Solar Fire, one of the most advanced programs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Solar Fire is awesome. And I have Solar Maps, which goes with it. It's an add-on program. It's another $150 on top of the $300 you spend for Solar Fire. But it does this in detail. It also shows crossing lines, like because there's longitudinal lines too. Like If two planets cross on some
And
angle,
your card
that point goes around the globe and manifests its energy too.
So like if you're like always called, like I always think I'm supposed to be in Hawaii. Like I'm supposed to be
Yeah,
in
you should
Hawaii.
go look at your map.
I
Yeah.
bet there's something there.
Yeah, like me, I looked at my map of Hawaii because I have a lot of friends that are like, come out to Hawaii, Kelly. And I'm really feeling it right. My neck's feels real strong. And I look at Hawaii, and I have Mercury on an IC line, like out in Hawaii. I have Mercury line on the bottom. So Mercury on the nadir, at the bottom of my chart. So basically that would be a good place for me to really go inward and right. Because Mercury would have been, like if I had been born there, Mercury would have been right on my nadir, at the deepest, lowest point of my chart. So yeah, it's cool. Because you can go there and you can feel these energies. Literally, you can just be like, oh my God, I feel this. And look, Asheville is exactly, my map's off here. So, Asheville is exactly on this line north of Key West. So still, astrologer, 10th house, career. So I'm still on this line here,
I
So,
bet this is my mentor line because I met Daisy.
yeah, Daisy. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know all about Daisy. She comes to our
Oh,
house all
I
the time.
love. She's my Yoda.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Oh,
Yeah, she's her Yoda too. How many times have you done her energy healing class?
I did it like 5 times.
Anything she offers, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Totally.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like,
I
amazing.
have a hard time not worshiping her.
Yeah, it's cool, So yeah, you can check out your astrocartography, which is a whole nother level of astrology usage. And it's fun, man. When you start studying astrology, it's like, woohoo! I understand these forces and how life flows.
I really want with that.
So, I wanted Daisy to come to this class. So I want her to integrate this knowledge with her knowledge.
Oh man.
And then,
Whoa.
I want to learn what she's got
She's
to.
gonna like blow you up.
Yeah.
She's 20 feet in the air.
Huh? So, here we are. We're all in it together. Next week, we'll be starting with, what are we doing next week? Oh, planets. Like the actual planets. Because we got to talk about those. Usually I start with those. I start with planets and signs, and then build toward the houses. But I've realized, people need to know the basic structure of the houses and hear it over and over so it can really build it, sink in. So that when you're done with this class, you'll be like, oh, 7th house, relationships. Oh, 8th house, change. 9th house, journeys. You'll have at least a basic understanding of this is where it comes out. And, the houses aren't just arbitrary, like you said, like things that humans made up. It's actually based on the flow of change each day. The houses are physical representations. The first house is the ascendant, what's appearing. 7th house, what's leaving, what's dying, what's fading, what's over there, Midheaven. The midheaven, at the top of the chart, in the top, that point right there, when you're on the earth, looking out, and the sun, the sun's path in the sky each day, the middle of that path, from your point on the earth, is that midheaven. So it's like the highest point that the sky reaches on that day. And so, in a way, you can think of it as like if you're standing there on the earth looking up at that point, it's not the point directly above you, it's just that point of the middle of the zodiac, the middle of the arc of the sky. So it's like the highest point. So the way I see it, it's like the point of aspiration, the point of like, I'm called to do that, Whereas the nadir would be that point behind you in the invisible, way down there, your past, what you're standing on, your family, your home, your roots. So, foundations. So it's kind of like that, And then the ascendant is over there rising, and then the descendant is setting. Or actually, this would be the ascendant over here, descendant. So, it's like, a graphical picture of that. So don't think that the houses are just made up. They're actually, okay, think of it this way. The houses are, all the planetary energies are coming through the zodiac signs. And the final filter, like this is like a coffee cup, this is the filter, right? The final filter is the earth, here, the atmosphere around us. That's the houses. The houses are the filter of how this energy is coming in and how it has meaning to us synchronistically. So, the houses are probably the most important part of astrology because the houses are how we divide the sky. So the houses are the sky. And we can't have astrology without a sky, right? So the houses are like how the sky, what's happening way out in deep space is coming into our sky. So.
Becoming meaningful to us.
Yeah, it's how it's touching us. The light is touching us, Without light, we'd all be dead. So, it's kind of cool to think of it that way. The houses being these little divisions based on the flow of change each day. So important,
So if you met someone and you were going to go on a date with them and you did their chart, what would you see if you were compatible? Like, would you look at?
We could do a whole 8 classes on that.
Like, what would be like just a good thing? Like your Venus should be in something, in there.
Well,
something.
one thing is like
I had a date tonight.
one thing is
I know. Forget it.
the 7th house is the house of love. Christina came as a client. She sat down and we did her chart, and we're both like, whoa. This is really cool. I was like, all right, there's an ethical code here. You know, we can't have sex with clients until at least a month's gone by, and they're not a paying client anymore. You got to, just like in massage. Yeah. Well, we have a lower standard in Astrology. We're still the outcasts on the side. We're not as regulated as massage therapists. Because the thing is, if the government decides to regulate us, they also have to say that astrology is an authentic practice, and they're not ready to say that yet. Yeah, so they're not touching that. We're still fortune tellers. So on the 7th house is the house of love. So me and Christina met, we were like, whoa, you know. I mean, she has Aquarius over here, so she needs a bizarre weirdo in her house of love, right? I have Gemini over there, and she's a Gemini, and I need mental stimulation in love. So both real mental lovers. Well, my son's an Aquarius in her 7th house. If you look at my chart with Gemini over there, her son's in my 7th house. So we both solarize each other's house of love. You know? Plus, my moon is in Gemini. Oops, my moon's in Gemini. So her sun and my moon are in the same sign. That's major compatibility. Sun, moon. And then her Venus is in Gemini. So my moon is on her Venus. I nurture her feminine, and she Venesificates or loves my soul, you know, of the writer. My ex-wife used to hate that as a writer. When are you coming home? Why at the coffee shop at 3 in the morning? I'd be like, because I'm writing. You know, she's like, why do you write? You know, where she's like, keep writing. You know, and so she loves my writing. So you know, there's that, and then of course, so 7th house is important. But then you have inter aspects like your this is squaring their that, or your this is trining their that.
Look for like Saturn. Yeah, like how do they impress you in any way? Or
Yeah. If you're having bad relationships and someone has Saturn on your moon, just by being around, you're going to be depressed all the time. Because their Saturn force of authority is always trying to organize your heart, which doesn't like all that boss-like energy on it. It's like having your boss at home for dinner. Everybody's like, on guard, you know? It's like, God, you know? And so,
I'm looking at this chart.
or imagine if they had Pluto, like, say, squaring your sun. So they're always destroying and rebirthing your life, which can be good if you need to go through a big change, and they're the sort of catalyst for your change. But it's going to be power struggle. It's going to be power struggle until you can rise above it. And you know, remember the only thing astrology can't tell you is the enlightenment level of the person driving that chart. And so you could have someone in Pluto square your sun, and they could be your greatest spiritual teacher, or a murderer. You know, so there's a range. You know, you could see someone. I had this one guy's chart, and he had Mars conjunct Pluto in his 1st house, and he was on the spiritual path, but he had a rough life, and he was born with Mars Pluto riding. Mars conjunct Pluto, will and divine will, and Mars is a symbol of battles, right? And accidents. And his Mars Pluto was on the 12th house side, so past life side. And he had Pluto there, death. So it was a symbol of like in the immediate past life, the 12th house, you died in a battle, you know, Pluto Mars. And he had a birthmark across his face, all the way down. That was looked like an axe hit him right in the face. He was born with a birthmark with like an axe in the face. And I was just like, I was looking at him, I was like, you see that mark? You see the Mars Pluto on the 12th house side. And then this one girl came, and I was looking at her chart, and she had you know, she was a 16-year-old. I was doing a chart somewhere in Greensboro at a store, and I was doing charts there all day. And this lady came, and she had this young girl, 16. She had Capricorn rising with Saturn on the ascendant. I was like, wow, this Capricorn is the sign of the wise old woman, you know. She's going to be wise for her age, you know. Saturn on the ascendant, triple wise. It's triple the energy for a planet on the ascendant. I was like, God, I wonder if she's like running her own business already at age 16. What is she doing? So she comes for the reading, right? You won't believe it. She sits down. 16-year-old girl sits down. She has hair all the way down to her back, and it's solid gray. Wow. Solid gray. I'm looking at the wise old woman in manifest going, you know? I even started getting gray hair when I was 16. There's a little streak here. And it's genetic because I have an ancestor that has that same little streak. But at that same time, I have Sun square Saturn. So my teachers were letting me teach the class at 14. I remember in calculus, Kelly, did you do the reading? They want to come teach the class? I'm like, sure, I'll teach the calculus class today. You know? It's like, but that wisdom was there, you know. So this woman, 16, solid gray, looks like Gandalf, with the hair anyway. So yeah, so you look like you're ascendant, and the planet that governs it modifies it, So if you're Cancer rising, the moon's going to say a lot about the way you look. If you're Sagittarius rising, Jupiter's going to say a lot. We're going to learn about the dignities, which planet goes with which sign. I mean, it's kind of obvious, Libra goes with Venus governs Libra, beauty, and Taurus, more beauty, but more earthy, sensual beauty. So like Libra's like a flute, where Taurus is like a drum. Taurus is like shaping clay, where Libra's like taking photographs. It's a different kind of art. And then Pisces is a whole different kind of art. Pisces is like visionary art, like Beethoven on the piano going. You're getting hit with like divine visions, So you got different levels of artistic expression in the chart. So anyway, that's enough for tonight.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Kelly.
No problem.